Chapter 11:27. Julienne had a look of despair, instantly losing all of her faith. All of her previous pride was shattered under God-Slayer young master's killing intent. Her knees turned soft, and she was actually going to kneel down directly. It seemed like she was not a stubborn person and was not as proud as she appeared on the surface. It was just that she looked down on people weaker than her. She felt that Nyetian could not afford to provoke her, so she dared to be arrogant in front of Nyetian. But when a person like God-Slayer young master appeared, she could only kneel. Stand up. Right at this time, an angry roar suddenly sounded out. Following that, a sharp air force flew over, making Julienne's half-kneeling body freeze in midair. Julienne was stunned, then looked at the silver-haired martial artist not far away. It was precisely Nyetian. She did not expect that Nyetian would stop her from kneeling at this time. The others were also stunned one after another. Following that, their gazes focused on Nyetian, not knowing what the latter wanted to do. Julienne, you're a martial artist. Your younger sister uses you as a role model. How can you kneel to others in front of her? Nyetian glanced at Julienne and said coldly. Although Julienne, this person was very irritating, at least she had one good point, which was to treat her younger sister well. It was also this point that made Nyetian willing to help her once. Of course, there was another important reason why Nyetian took action. That was that this God-Slayer young master was too arrogant. Encountering this kind of person who was arrogant to his grandma's house, if Nyetian did not take action, he would really feel stifled in his heart. Nyetian had encountered many arrogant and despotic people before, but it seemed like God-Slayer young master once again refreshed the height of arrogance. Just because of an angry roar, he made people cripple their own primordial spirit essence meridians and even kneel down and kowtow 100 times. Such an arrogant person, if Nyetian did not take care of him, he would be stifled until he got sick. Yo! When God-Slayer young master saw Nyetian suddenly make a move, he could not help laughing strangely. Following that, he looked at the ladder. After confirming that the ladder's strength was only second-level Heavenly Emperor, he smiled cold and said, "Want to be a hero saving a damsel in distress? If you dare to act like a hero and save a damsel in distress in front of this young master, you better be prepared to pay the price with your life." It was still a playful voice, and it seemed unusually ear-piercing and unreasonable. Nyetian smiled and said, "I'm not interested in being a hero saving a beauty, but I'm interested in beating up a mad dog." Absolute love was indeed beautiful, but it was a pity that she was not Nyetian's cup of tea. Moreover, either Mo Rushi or Cher could easily defeat absolute love, so he really was not a hero saving the damsel in distress. It was just that the God-Slayer young master was too arrogant, forcing him to take action. Nyetian's voice wasn't loud, but every word he spoke was like a clap of thunder that resounded in everyone's ears. Everyone's minds were in a daze, and their expressions became sluggish. In the Dongchuan divine realm, there was actually someone who dared to openly challenge young Master God-Slayer. This was simply too exciting. Everyone's gazes were fixed on Nyetian. Many people had sympathetic looks on their faces because anyone who dared to challenge young Master God-Slayer would not have a good ending. Hearing Nyetian's words, young Master God-Slayer was startled at first, as if he thought that he had heard wrongly. Then, he confirmed that Nyetian really said, "beat up a mad dog." His entire being was instantly enraged. Who was he? Young Master God-Slayer, one of the 4 young masters of the Dongchuan divine realm. The #1 genius of the Heaven Murder sect in 1,000 years, the person who would become the sovereign of the Heaven Murder sect in the future, and the person who might even reach the pinnacle of martial arts in the Heaven realm, was actually called a mad dog. How could he endure this? Young Master God-Slayer felt as if there were countless maggots crawling all over his body, making him feel extremely uncomfortable. He wished that he could tear his body apart. "Stinking brat, you call me a mad dog? Do you know who you were talking to?" God-Slayer Prince roared in anger. A voice resounded in his mind. He must not kill the silver-haired warrior in front of him. It would be too easy for him. He wanted the latter to taste the pain of wanting to live, but not being able to die. It's over. The crowd could feel young Master Godslayer's rage. Two words appeared in their minds at the same time. Nietion dared to insult young Master Godslayer. This was definitely the rhythm of seeking death. Julian was also stunned. She didn't understand why Nietion would do this. She might have just had a conflict with him, and even said Lin Yi's name. Everyone's hearts were in their throats. Their eyes widened as if their eyeballs are going to fall out. However, Nietion's face was calm. His eyes were so calm that it made people's hair stand on end. This brat must be pretending to be calm, but his acting is too good. Seeing Nietion's expression, everyone thought. Nietion raised his head to look at young Master Godslayer and said, "I don't know who you are, but you bite everyone you see. If you aren't a mad dog, then what are you?" Nietion said to Shui Yong, "Shui Yong, watch the old man behind young Master Godslayer." "Yes." Shui Yong nodded. He knew Nietion's identity, so he wasn't afraid of young Master Godslayer. Being arrogant in front of the heaven world's #1 war god, young Master Godslayer had stepped on a flower. As Nietion's voice fell, the crowd fell into a dead silence. The atmosphere was so oppressive that it was suffocating. Everyone stared at Nietion in shock. They couldn't believe their eyes and ears. It was like a dream. Young Master Godslayer's face stiffened. He couldn't react for a long time. After a dozen or so seconds, Prince Godslayer finally reacted. He let out a furious roar, as if he had gone mad. His handsome face became twisted from extreme anger. "Brat, I'll tear you apart." In the next moment, young Master Godslayer could no longer suppress his anger. His body trembled, and he slammed his palm down. Suddenly, a wild energy condensed, and a golden palm appeared in the air. The space tightened, and the power of heaven and earth changed. An earth-shattering power came crashing down on Nietion. "Mr. Nya, be careful." At this time, the first person to react was Ju Ruo. She screamed and warned Nietion. Facing young Master Godslayer's palm, Nietion had a strange smile on his face. He already knew that his opponent would make a move. Even the holographic projection in his mind depicted this scene in advance. Everyone's eyes widened as they stared at Nietion. It was as if they could already see him being smashed into meat paste. Sword hearts into the moon break. However, Nietion didn't panic. The sword Absolute Heaven Slash appeared in his hand. His sword intent surged out like a tsunami. He stabbed out with his sword, and a huge sword shadow formed by his 4th level sword intent appeared. The sword intent of the sword's soul burst out. The sword light bloomed in the air, and the sword light shot out thousands of meters. What a powerful sword intent! In an instant, everyone felt a huge sword intent pressing down on them. It made them tremble from the bottom of their souls. This sword intent was too terrifying. It was unimaginable. This sword contained the power of Nietion's soul devourer sword intent. It also contained a frightening spiritual attack. One could imagine how powerful it was. Seeing the huge sword shadow, young Master Godslayer's heart trembled. His eyes froze for a moment. The huge palm's momentum slowed down. Chapter 1128. In the void, under Nietion's sword, the sword shadow had yet to arrive, but the sword intent already pervaded. The spiritual attack contained in the sword intent caught young Master Godslayer by surprise. He actually became slightly absent-minded for a moment. Right at this instant, the momentum of young Master Godslayer's palm slowed down. He wanted to be forceful again, but it was already impossible. In contrast, the power of Nietion's sword became stronger and stronger. The sword shadow rushed to the sky with a howl, akin to a flood dragon breaking out of the abyss. The terrifying aura shook heaven and earth. Right at this moment, that black-clothed old man beside young Master Godslayer sensed something amiss and instantly made a move. This black-clothed old man was the only 5th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist on young Master Godslayer's side that Nietion sensed. Regarding this person's attack, Nietion had long expected it and handed him to Shui Yong. Shui Yong also had 5th-level Heavenly Emperor strength and just advanced. Even if he was not this old man's match, he could at least block this person's attack. "I've been watching you for a long time." Virtually at the instant the black-clothed old man made a move, Shui Yong roared angrily. Stomping both feet, his figure soared to the sky. A black giant axe appeared in his hand. It was precisely his primordial spirit, black flame, heaven-splitting axe. The old man's figure moved, smacking a palm down towards Nietian. The horrifying palm force stirred the void, like a mass of dark clouds, pressing down towards Nietian. Boom! And at the same time, Shui Yong wielded the axe with both hands and suddenly chopped down. A stream of black flames surged out, like a black flame-sharp blade, chopping towards that mass of dark clouds. Bang! In the next instant, the palm and sword collided. But that palm imprint lacked momentum and was actually directly shattered by the sword shadow. Arg! A shrill scream sounded out. Young Master Godslayer's figure directly flew out backward, a dripping blood-colored trail appearing in the air. Rumble! At virtually the same time, Shui Yong's black flame-sharp blade bombarded the black-clothed old man's dark clouds. A loud sound erupted in the air. The two forces actually exploded at the same time. A horrifying aura wreaked havoc in the space, emitting ear-piercing, tearing sounds. Crack! 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 Terrifying power erupted, impacting on the ground. The ground was directly torn apart, several shocking cracks appearing, stirring up towering earth waves. What a terrifying power! The crowd retreated, looking at the scene in front of them in horror. The strength of 5th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artists was indeed tyrannical. Under the collision of one move, they could actually erupt with such horrifying power. The terrifying aura in the air took a long time to dissipate. Two figures faced each other in the air. It was the black-clad old man and Shui Yong. At this time, everyone's eyes glazed over as they stared at the scene in midair. Their gazes wandered between Nietian and the others, and their faces were filled with disbelief. It was unimaginable that Nietian could injure young Master Godslayer with a single strike. Just now, everyone was certain that if Child Godslayer attacked, Nietian would die. But the result was the opposite of what they expected. Young Master Godslayer was not able to kill Nietian, but was instead injured by Nietian. This was too strange. Young Master Godslaying was one of the famous 4 young masters of Donchuan. Nietian was just a nobody, and he was 2 levels weaker than young Master Godslaying, but he was still able to injure his opponent. How did he do it? Countless doubtful gazes stared at Nietian, gradually turning into apprehension, because they discovered that Nietian was an unfathomably terrifying martial artist. Of course, the black-clad old man and Shui Yong's exchange similarly shocked people. No one could have expected that Shui Yong could actually forcefully clash head-on with the black-clad old man and not fall into a disadvantage in the slightest. 5th-level Heavenly Emperor strength. The black-clad old man looked at Shui Yong, his gaze trembling violently. He did not expect that the puny little martial Liang city actually still had a 5th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist. According to what he knew, only City Lord Zhu Tianhua was 5th-level Heavenly Emperor strength in martial Liang City. When did another 5th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist appear? Nietian gave Shui Yong a glance, his gaze revealing surprise. He did not expect that Shui Yong could actually fight to a draw with the black-clad old man. One had to know, Shui Yong had just broken through to 5th-level Heavenly Emperor yesterday, while that black-clad old man had at least stopped at 5th-level Heavenly Emperor for more than a decade, even as long as several decades. Looks like I still underestimated the 7 Revolutions Dragon Heart Pill's power. Shui Yong, this brat, spent so long to refine the Dragon Heart Pill's power. It's still considered worth it, Nietian said coolly in his heart. Pooh work. Right at this time, young Master Godslayer's figure trembled, spewing out a mouthful of dirty blood, and nearly fell from midair, but he was supported by 2 martial artists behind him. Young Master Godslayer's eyes were filled with a malicious divine light, staring fixedly at Nietian. Even his voice became hoarse as he opened his mouth solemnly. Why does your sword intent contain a mental attack? Mental attack. When the black-clad old man heard these 4 words, he was stunned, and then immediately understood something. No wonder the instant young Master Godslayer attacked previously, it was not smooth at all. There was even a momentary stagnation. It turned out that he suffered a mental attack. But how is this possible? The black-clad old man had seen before countless swordsmen and seen before all sorts of different sword intents. But he had never seen before someone's sword intent contain a mental attack. Martial artists who knew mental attacks were 1 in a million to begin with. And being able to fuse a mental attack into sword intent was even more unheard of. It was naturally impossible for the black-clad old man to think that Niet Tion comprehended soul sword intent. Soul sword intent, this saying was too bizarre. The black-clad old man did not even dare to think about it. It was precisely because of the mental attack in Niet Tion's sword that caught young Master Godslayer off guard. Otherwise, he had absolute confidence that the palm earlier was sufficient to annihilate Niet Tion. Niet Tianling smiled coldly, his gaze sweeping across young Master Godslayer, and said coolly, "This is my secret. What'd I tell you? Soul-devouring sword intent. This was the soul sword intent that Niet Tion just comprehended yesterday. Now, it was already one of his killer moves. How could he possibly tell others? You? Pooh work." Young Master Godslayer felt Niet Tion's gaze like he was looking at an idiot and immediately felt tremendous humiliation. His chest felt like a 10,000 caddy boulder was pressing down, making him unable to catch his breath. His body actually trembled, and he spewed out another mouthful of fresh blood. "Young Master, are you all right?" When the black-clad old man saw the situation, he hurriedly walked over. Only at this time did he discover that young Master Godslayer's injuries were even more severe than he imagined. "Get lost!" Young Master Godslayer forcefully propped up his body and roared angrily. He actually glared at that black-clad old man and berated mercilessly. "Useless trash!" The black-clad old man's old face flickered between green and red, but he did not dare to flare up. He also did not expect that a 5th-level Heavenly Emperor powerhouse would appear here. Furthermore, it seemed like Niet Tion had already predicted everything. When he attacked, he already made that 5th-level Heavenly Emperor powerhouse keep an eye on him. The black-clad old man took a deep look at Niet Tion, wanting to see through the latter. But he felt that the person in front of him was like a cold pool, bottomless. The more he wanted to see through, the more he felt a bone-piercing chill. "Young Master, let's leave first." The black-clad old man's gaze flickered intensely. After saying that, he stepped onto the ironback Dragonhawk. "Stinking brat, this matter won't end like this. If this young master doesn't kill you, I won't be young Master Godslayer." Young Master Godslayer gnashed his teeth in hatred, but he did not dare to attack again. His figure moved, stepping onto the ironback Dragonhawk. Chapter 1129. Godslayer and the others left as quickly as they came. Everyone watched the steelback Dragonhawk disappear in the sky. They were still in a daze. When the steelback Dragonhawk disappeared, everyone looked at Niet Tion with shock written all over their faces. Godslayer, one of the 4 princes of Donchuan, had been seriously injured by Niet Tion and left with his tail between his legs. This was too shocking, so shocking that it was satisfying. "Shuiyong, let's go," Niet Tion said indifferently. Then, he looked up at the sky with a strange smile on his face. Even if he helped Zhu Yin, he didn't want to have too much to do with her. Not to mention that Zhu Yin's character made Niet Tion feel disgusted. Just the fact that she was with Lin Yi was enough to make Niet Tion retreat. "Wait!" Just as Niet Tion and Shuiyong were about to leave, Zhu Yin's voice was heard again. Niet Tion's mouth twitched. He stopped but didn't turn around. Instead, he said, "Miss Zhu, what else do you want?" "Thank you." Zhu Yin frowned. Her eyes flashed. She hesitated for a long time before she finally opened her mouth. Although her voice was low, it was still a thank you. "You're welcome," Niet Tianling replied coldly. The reason why he took action was not because of Zhu Yin, but because Godslayer was too arrogant. With these words, Niet Tion raised his head and looked up at the sky above him. His brows were tightly furrowed, as if he was thinking about something. "Niet Tion, you've offended Godslayer. He has the Heaven Murder sect behind him. Now that the Heaven Earth Spirit Pool has been discovered in the Xianhuang mountain range, experts from the Heaven Murder sect will definitely appear. You shouldn't go there, Zhu Yin said after a long time. Her face became cold again. She was worried about Nie Tian. Miss Zhu, instead of worrying about him, why don't you worry about yourself? Nie Tian smiled and said playfully, I am a member of the Zhu clan. As long as I reunite with my father and husband, even if I meet Child Godslayer again, he won't dare harm me. Zhu Yin's eyes flickered. When she mentioned the word husband, there was an obvious heat in her eyes that was difficult to conceal. She felt that if Nie Tian could defeat Child Godslayer, then Lin Yi would definitely be able to as well. Nie Tian smiled wryly and said, The danger I'm talking about is not from young noble Godslayer, but from your husband. Stay away from him if you don't know what kind of person he is. Nie Tian. Hearing Nie Tian's words, Zhu Yin's eyes violently trembled and she said, Don't think that you can slander my husband just because you saved me. Lin Yi is the person I like. I know what kind of person he is. I don't need your cold words to judge him. The inexplicable anger showed that Zhu Yin was infatuated with Lin Yi. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed, and he didn't say anything else. Whether Zhu Yin listened or not was her own business. It had nothing to do with Nie Tian. Nie Tian, since you saved me, I'll give you some words for free. Child Godslayer is not someone to be trifled with. Be careful. Zhu Yin's cold voice reminded him, but it sounded more like a threat. I'll give you some words for free as well. I'm not someone to be trifled with either. Nie Tian smiled faintly, his face calm. Oh, at that moment, a sharp cry came from the horizon. The Zhu clan's Ironback Dragonhawk had returned. It's the Ironback Dragonhawk. The Zhu clan cried out in joy when they saw the Dragonhawk return. Now that the Ironback Dragonhawk had returned, the Zhu clan could ride it to the Yellow Mountain Range. Let's go. Zhu Yin's eyes twinkled when she saw the Ironback Dragonhawk return. She then said coldly, The Zhu clan's members all jumped onto the Dragonhawk. Mr. Nie, and the others. Li Quan looked at Zhu Yin with an embarrassed expression. He was obviously hoping that Nie Tian and the others would come with him. Zhu Yin glared at Li Quan, forcing him to swallow his words. Mr. Nie, thank you for helping us, Zhu Ruo said while biting her lips. Nie Tian smiled indifferently. Zhu Yin and Zhu Ruo were sisters, but their personalities were very different. They were similar to Lin Yi and Lin Feng. The Zhu clan's members jumped onto the Ironback Dragonhawk and quickly disappeared into the horizon. Mister, what should we do? Shui Yong looked at the place where the Ironback Dragonhawk had disappeared and frowned. He knew that in the entire Wuliang city, only the Zhu clan had Ironback Dragonhawks. They had to go to another city or walk to the Yellow Mountain Range. Both options were a waste of time. Your Excellency, you've been watching for so long. Don't you want to come out? At this moment, a faint smile appeared on Nie Tian's face as he looked up into the sky, as if he was talking to the void. Shui Yong had a strange expression. He didn't know who Nie Tian was talking to. Brother, he's discovered us. In the next moment, a clear voice spread through the air. It was a 15 or 16-year-old girl. There's someone in the sky, Shui Yong shouted. He hadn't thought that there would be someone hiding in the sky. Don't be nervous, we're not enemies. Immediately after, a voice spread through the air and a spirit boat appeared. The spirit boat was shaped like an eagle. It wasn't very big. It was about 20 meters long and 4 or 5 meters wide. It looked very sturdy. There was a layer of cyan chi surrounding it. It looked very strange. What a powerful spirit boat. Nie Tian was stupefied when he saw the spirit boat. The spirit boat was a kind of aircraft. Generally, only 8th rank weapon refiners and above could build it. The spirit boat in front of him not only had the ability to fly, but it was also equipped with strong bows. Nie Tian looked at it. The internal structure of the spirit boat was very complicated. There were countless hidden weapons. This was not only a spirit boat, but also a battleship. Heaven-level spirit boat. They're from the Bai family. Nie Tian judged at first glance that they were from the Bai family. Spirit boats and battleships were divided into 4 grades: Heaven, Earth, Black, and Yellow. The spirit boat in front of him was the highest grade, Heaven-level spirit boat. to be able to combine the spirit boat and battleship. The person who built this spirit boat was definitely a 9th rank weapon refiner. And there was only one 9th rank weapon refiner in the Heaven Realm. That was the president of the Weapon Refiners Guild, Bai Mingbo. In an instant, Nie Tian guessed that the people on the spirit boat were from the Bai family. His attention had been completely attracted by the spirit boat battleship. But at this time, his eyes trembled slightly. Only then did he notice that there were 3 young martial artists on the spirit boat, 2 men and 1 woman. They looked very similar, so they should be siblings. Among the 3, the oldest was a man in white. He looked to be about 25 or 26 years old. He had sword-like eyebrows and bright eyes. He was very handsome and sincere. The other man was slightly younger. He was only about 20 years old. His expression was cold, and his eyes were sharp. He was very vigilant. Chapter 11:30. Nie Tian looked at the 3 people on the spirit boat, his gaze involuntarily trembling, and he was considerably surprised. These 3 people's strengths were all very strong. Although that young lady was only 15 or 16 years old, she had 9th level heaven being strength. The youth slightly older than her was 2nd level heavenly emperor strength, while the oldest youth actually had 4th level heavenly emperor strength. Big brother, it's a little strange that this kid can discover the existence of the spirit boat, that cold-faced youth said solemnly, not avoiding Nie Tian in the slightest. The spirit boat they rode on was the White Cloud spirit boat. There was a shielding spirit formation outside the spirit boat. It could hide in the void. Furthermore, there was even a rank 8 spirit formation protection, strengthening the spirit boat's defensive power. It was no exaggeration to say that even martial artists whose mental strength reached rank 90 and above might not be able to discover the existence of the spirit boat. Nie Tian, on the other hand, sensed the strangeness of the spiritual boat. Actually, Nie Tian had long discovered the existence of the White Cloud spirit boat. Furthermore, he knew that these 3 people saw the matter previously. Your Excellency has good means to actually be able to discover us. The oldest youth smiled faintly, appearing very refined. Nie Tian seemed to see the shadow of his 3rd disciple, Chengju, in this person. The 2 were both that kind of modest and gentlemanly type of people. Silver hair brat, who are you? Why can you detect our existence? That young lady was not friendly and rebuked angrily with a pout. Don't be nervous, we're not enemies. Nie Tian smiled faintly and actually repeated what that youth said previously. The 3 people were taken aback, slightly speechless. Thinking for a moment, Nie Tian still opened his mouth to ask, I want to ask, who is Mr. Bai Mingbo to you guys? How do you know Grandpa's name? The young lady reacted very quickly. The moment she opened her mouth, she realized that she had inadvertently revealed something and hurriedly said, You don't need to know this. Oh. Nie Tian could not help laughing and said with a nod, Looks like the 3 of you are all Mr. Bai Mingbo's descendants. That tall youth nodded solemnly, seeing that Nie Tian was not some evil person. Furthermore, he saw Nie Tian and Godslayer young master fighting earlier and was very respectful of the latter's actions. Hence, he said, I'm Bai Yunfei. The person you mentioned just now is my grandfather. They're my younger brother and sister, Bai Xiaofei and Bai Xiaoya. It really is someone from the Bai family. Nie Tian smiled faintly in his heart. He had not seen Bai Mingbo for more than 100 years, and the latter's attainments in artifact forging had improved significantly. He was actually able to combine a spirit boat and a battleship together. Nie Tian reckoned that this spirit boat warship in front of him was sufficient to withstand the attacks of ordinary 9th level Heavenly Emperor martial artists. It was very terrifying. Bai Yunfei. At this time, Shui Yong let out a strange cry and said with a surprised expression, You're young Master Yunfei. Young Master Yunfei? Nie Tian was slightly taken aback and immediately understood. For Shui Yong to call Bai Yunfei Lord Yunfei meant that Bai Yunfei was one of the 4 lords of the Dongchuan region, just like Lord Godslayer. Nie Tian's guess was correct. Bai Yunfei was indeed one of the 4 lords. Bai Yunfei's age and strength were similar to Godslayer's, but his aura was 1,000 times better. Your Excellency, how should I address you? Bai Yunfei smiled faintly and looked at Nie Tian as he said, I'm called Nie Tian. This is my friend, Shui Yong. Nie Tian similarly smiled and said with a nod, Nie Tian. When Bai Yunfei heard this name, his brows could not help furrowing. What is it? Nie Tian's gaze turned intent slightly. It couldn't be that the other party saw through something, right? Nothing. Bai Yunfei smiled calmly and said, It's just that your name is the same as an old friend of grandfather's, so it's a little strange. Oh. Nie Tian's heart could not help easing up, and he said with a smile, The Heaven Realm's divine realm has hundreds of billions of people. There are countless people with the same name and surname. It's nothing strange. Although he said so, Nie Tian knew that the person Bai Yunfei was talking about was definitely him, because he and Bai Mingbo were pretty good friends in his previous life. Although they were not considered best friends, their friendship was not shallow either. Young Master Bai, you're going to the Xianwang mountain range, right? My friend and I are also going to the Xianwang mountain range. I wonder if you can give us a ride? Nie Tian smiled faintly. Since he knew the other party's identity, there was no need to be polite. No way. Before Nie Tian could finish his words, Bai Xiao pouted and said, My grandfather said that we can't let unidentified people on the spirit boat. Xiaoya. Bai Yunfei was slightly embarrassed. He glared at Bai Xiaoya and then turned to Nie Tian with a smile, saying, Brother Nie, I'm young, so please don't take offense. Since Brother Nie wants to go to the Xianhuang mountain range, let's go together. Big brother. Bai Xiaoya looked unhappy, but it was not good to offend Bai Yunfei. Otherwise, the latter would use the phrase elder brother is like a father to teach her a lesson. Xiaoya, I believe in big brother's judgment. At this time, the quiet Bai Xiaofei pulled Bai Xiaoya and said in a low voice. Bai Xiaoya had a helpless expression. She stomped her foot in anger and didn't say anything else. Brother Nie, please. Bai Yunfei didn't know what mechanism he used, but a crack appeared in the protective array of the spirit boat. Nie Tian and Shui Yong didn't hesitate anymore. Their feet stepped forward and their bodies moved like lightning, directly entering the spirit boat. Bai Xiaoya looked at the two and snorted coldly before turning her head away. Bai Xiaofei nodded slightly as a greeting, but his eyes were extremely cautious and vigilant. Damn, this spirit boat is really good. It's like entering another space and time. The spiritual energy of the world seems to be much denser here. Shui Yong laughed carelessly. Of course. There are all kinds of spiritual arrays inside the spirit boat, and sometimes there's even a spirit void array, so it's extremely fast. There's also a spirit force array that can constantly absorb the spiritual energy of the world outside. Cultivating inside the spirit boat is much faster than cultivating outside. Nie Tian explained with a smile. I didn't expect Brother Nie to be so familiar with the spirit boat. Could it be that Brother Nie is a craftsman? Bai Yunfei asked in surprise. You can say that. Nie Tian smiled awkwardly and answered perfunctorily. In his previous life, he was at the peak of the martial Dao and alchemy Dao, but he only dabbled in refining and spiritual arrays. Compared to Bai Mingbo, who was a craftsman, the difference was like heaven and earth. At this time, the spirit boat started to move and gradually disappeared into the void. It seemed as if it had entered another space and time. Everything around it became blurry. Nie Tian knew that this was the spirit boat starting to fly. Due to the extreme speed, the space around it changed slightly, and the scenery around it became blurry. In just a moment, the spirit boat had caught up to the Zhu clan's ironback dragonhawk. It flew directly above the sky, but the Zhu clan didn't notice it at all. The speed of the spirit boat is really fast. It's far faster than the ironback dragonhawk. At this speed, we can reach the Yellow Mountain range in half a day. Nie Tian said in his heart. Of course, Nie Tian knew that the Bai siblings were going to the Yellow Mountain range for the Heaven and Earth Spirit Pool. However, he didn't ask. Otherwise, he was afraid that Bai Xiaoya would give him the cold shoulder. Along the way, the spirit boat surpassed countless ironback dragonhawks. It seemed as if the entire Eastern River Divine Realm was boiling with excitement as all of them were heading towards the Yellow Mountain range. This is going to be troublesome. Tian looked at the countless ironback dragonhawks behind him and couldn't help but sigh. Chapter 1131. The speed of the White Cloud spirit boat was extremely fast. In just half a day, Tian and the others arrived above the Xianhuang mountain range. Brother Nye, the mountain range below us is the Xianhuang mountain range, Bai Yunfei said as he pointed at the continuous mountain range beneath his feet. His eyes revealed an unconcealable passion as he said, "Rumor has it that the vein of the earth is in the Xianhuang mountain range. The energy of the world there is extremely dense, and it has already formed a spiritual pool of heaven and earth." Tian smiled. The rumor is not entirely true. The spiritual pool of heaven and earth is a treasure of heaven and earth. How can it be found so easily? As he spoke, Tian cast his gaze on the rolling mountain range beneath his feet. He had been to the everlasting heaven before. It was the northernmost area of the sacred realm of Dongchuan. It could be said to be a barren land without any signs of life. However, the Xianhuang mountain range below him was very unique. It was verdant and lush with giant trees and lush flowers. It was like an oasis in the middle of a desert. It seems that there really is an energy vein here. Tian's eyes narrowed. To be able to form an oasis in a barren land, it was very likely that there was a huge energy vein in the Xianhuang mountain range. An energy vein was not rare. There might be an energy vein in the Xianhuang mountain range, but there might not be a spiritual pool of heaven and earth. The space in the sacred realm of heaven realm was not stable enough to nurture a spiritual pool of heaven and earth. Big brother, there are so many people over there. At this time, Bai Xiaoya walked over and looked at an empty space in the mountain range. She was pleasantly surprised and looked very excited. Tian looked at Bai Xiaoya and smiled. He guessed that Bai Mingbo also knew that there would not be a spiritual pool of heaven realm in the sacred realm. The reason why he let the Bai siblings come out was to let them gain some experience. Bai Yunfei was a steady person, while Bai Xiaofei was very calm. In addition, they had a spirit boat, so they could basically deal with all kinds of emergencies. So many people gathered there. Did they already find the energy vein? Bai Yunfei was slightly stunned, but his eyes revealed a hint of joy. At this time, Tian's spiritual sense swept over. Even through the spirit boat's spirit shielding array, he could still clearly see the situation below. In the center of everyone's encirclement, there was a mass of chaotic qi floating in the air. It was like a dense cloud vortex, only several meters wide. It constantly spun, and the surrounding space was affected. It was pulled taut, and the power of heaven and earth was changed. Gate of the Void. The moment he saw this chaotic vortex, Tian couldn't help but cry out in alarm. His entire face suddenly changed, and his expression became slightly sluggish. He never expected that a door to the void would appear here. "Brother Nye, are you all right?" Standing by Tian's side, Bai Yunfei was the first to sense his abnormality and asked with a frown, "Sir, what's wrong?" Shuiyong also saw that Tian's expression was not right and could not help but become nervous. The expression on Tian's face froze for several seconds before slowly relaxing. His eyes were still unable to hide the shock in them. "I didn't think that a gate of the void would appear here," he murmured. Gate of the Void. Bai Yunfei and the others were startled. They had no idea what Tian was talking about. That massive chaotic vortex is the Gate of the Void, the space-time gate that escapes from a high-grade space-time barrier. Tian calmed down a bit and pointed at the chaotic vortex. Bai Yunfei and the others stared at each other, unable to see what Tian was talking about. It was only then that Tian suddenly realized that Bai Yunfei and the others couldn't see something that was so far away, especially with the spirit shielding array separating them. "Bai Yunfei, let's go down first." Suppressing his excitement, Tian gestured for Bai Yunfei to open the boat. "Okay." Bai Yunfei didn't know what Tian's reaction was, but he nodded anyway. The boat came to life, and the array opened up to reveal several people. Everyone down below was so focused that they didn't notice Tian and the others. Landing on a large boulder, They could see the chaotic vortex in the distance. It was the gate of the void that Nietian was talking about. What a powerful space-time aura! Bai Yunfei stared at the gate of the void. Feeling the terrifying space-time aura, Bai Yunfei couldn't help but be shocked. He immediately realized that the space-time within a few thousand meters of him was being affected by the gate of the void. It was distorting and even compressing. It really is the gate of the void. Nietian's lips curled into a smile, his eyes flashing with excitement. The others also felt the change in space-time and were shocked. "Brother Nya, what is this gate of the void?" Bai Yunfei asked after a long time had passed. Nietian seemed to know a lot about the gate of the void. The gate of the void is a space-time gate that comes out from a high-level space-time barrier. Nietian repeated. Seeing the confused look on Bai Yunfei's face, he smiled and said, "You can think of the gate of the void as an independent compressed space. It is a highly distorted space-time barrier that can lead to another space-time." In fact, this was Nietian's first time seeing the gate of the void. He had only read about it in ancient books before. It was a very special independent space that was similar to the space the Sword Elder had talked about. It could be understood as a space-time barrier that came out from a different space. Through the space-time barrier, one could go to another space. "Brother Nya, are you saying that if we go through the nether gate, we'll be able to go to another space-time?" Bai Yunfei's comprehension ability was quite good, so he couldn't help but gulp. "Yes." Nietian smiled and nodded. The gate of the void is a moving space-time formation. It is a space-time gate that leads to another space. Rumor has it that through the gate of the void, one can go to a higher world outside of the divine realm of the heaven realm. A higher world? Bai Yunfei was stunned. Could it be the legendary realm of gods? Maybe. Nietian nodded slightly with a strange smile on his face. Nietian did not know if the gate of the void could lead to the legendary realm of gods, but he knew that the appearance of the gate of the void meant that the mysterious Yellow Mountain range might really have a world essence pond. It was impossible for the world essence pond to appear in the divine realm of the heaven realm, because the space-time here was not stable enough. But if there was a special space-time in the mysterious Yellow Mountain range that was stable enough, then it could give birth to a world essence pond. Nietian guessed that there was a high possibility that such a special space-time existed in the mysterious Yellow Mountain range, and the gate of the void in front of him came from that special space-time. After understanding this, the smile on Nietian's face became slightly stiff. If he stepped into the gate of the void, then wouldn't he directly enter that special space-time and then find the world essence pond? Chapter 1132. Thinking about the possibility that the gate to the void could lead to the heaven and earth pool, Nietian's eyes revealed a great desire. Although he didn't come to the Xianhuang mountain range for the heaven and earth pool, it would still be a great surprise if he could find it. Nietian's eyes widened. Without hesitation, he walked towards the gate to the void to see what it was. The closer he got to the gate to the void, the more he felt the space-time around him distort. An enormous pressure came from all directions, threatening to tear his body apart. Because of this pressure, everyone else stood a few hundred meters away from the gate to the void. "Nietian, are you crazy?" Just as Nietian was about 100 meters away from the gate to the void, the Sword Elder's voice echoed in his mind. Nietian was taken aback and came to a stop. "This is a gate of time." Almost at the same time, a surprised voice suddenly sounded. Then, a figure flashed past Nietian and rushed towards the gate to the void. The figure's figure was extremely fast. He must have recognized that the gate to the void was a gate of time and was also thinking about the heaven and earth pool. Just as the figure was about 50 meters away from the gate to the void, the space suddenly trembled. Then, like an invisible hand, a strange force appeared and wrapped around the figure. In the next moment, a heart-wrenching scream rang out. Under the control of the space-time power, the person's body was unable to resist at all. The terrifying power actually twisted his body into pieces, turning him into a ball of bloody light that dissipated in the air. SSS-. This sudden scene caused everyone to suck in a breath of cold air. Dumbfounded, They stare at the gate to the void in the air, unable to speak for a long time. This? Nietion's expression froze as well. He couldn't help but swallow his saliva. Almost subconsciously, he retreated to keep his distance from the gate to the void. Frightened, Nietion retreated back to the giant boulder. Feeling the pressure on his body lessen, his stiff expression improved. "Brother Niet, are you all right?" Bai Yunfei and the others were still in shock and asked in astonishment. Nietion shook his head, finally calming down a lot. The scene just now was too horrifying. Thinking back to it now, it still made one's heart palpitate. Nietion discerned that that person was a fifth-level Heavenly Emperor powerhouse. After approaching the gate of the void, he actually did not have the strength to resist at all and was directly torn to shreds by the space-time strange power. Fortunately, the Sword Elder reminded him in time. Otherwise, Nietion's fate would not be any better. "Sword Elder, what's going on?" asked Nietion became cold. He stared at the door of the void with fear in his eyes. The gate of the void was too terrifying to actually instantly tear apart a fifth-level Heavenly Emperor powerhouse. "Brat, you're still too young." Sword Elder shook his head. Luckily, he sensed that the outside world's space-time aura changed. Only then did he notice what Nietion was doing. Otherwise, the consequences would be too ghastly to imagine. Sword Elder let out a sigh. Looking at the gate of the void, he explained, "The gate of the void is a space-time gate formed by highly distorted and compressed space-time. The space-time pressure inside is virtually not inferior to the spatial storm inside a spatial rift. Aren't you courting death by wanting to enter the gate of the void?" "So that's how it is." Nietion had a look of astonishment. He did not expect that the interior of the gate of the void actually contained such a horrifying power, comparable to a spatial storm. No wonder even a fifth-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist was instantly shredded to pieces. One had to know, how horrifying was the power of a spatial storm? It was sufficient to instantly shred a ninth-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist. "Huh." Nietion let out a long breath of turbid air, his complexion improving slightly. This time, he was really a little too impulsive. Fortunately, Sword Elder reminded him in time. "However, your guess should be right." At this time, Sword Elder's voice sounded out once more, saying, "The alternate space that this gate of the void leads to is extremely likely inside the Xianhuang mountain range. Furthermore, there might be a heaven and earth spirit pool existing there." "There's really a heaven and earth spirit pool?" Nietion's gaze quivered slightly, unable to conceal the scorching heat in his heart. Sword Elder nodded his head solemnly and said, "I also didn't expect that a tiny little Xianhuang mountain range actually hit a stretch of alternate space. But this alternate space shouldn't be big. It's extremely likely that it was condensed and formed from an ancient essence energy vein. The Xianhuang mountain range is located in a barren land like everlasting, but it can become an independent oasis. It should be affected by the heaven and earth spiritual energy dispersing out of the alternate space." Nietion nodded slightly, deeply feeling that way too. The heaven and earth spiritual energy dispersing out of the alternate space could even turn the Xianhuang mountain range into an oasis. The richness of the heaven and earth spiritual energy inside could be imagined. Nietion was basically certain that a heaven and earth spirit pool definitely existed inside this alternate space. "Sword Elder, this gate of the void's space-time pressure is so great. Doesn't that mean that there's no way to enter that alternate space at all?" Nietion looked at the gate of the void, his face revealing worry. Fifth-level Heavenly Emperor martial artists would be directly ground to shreds when they approached within 50 meters of the Sumeru Gate. Most likely, even ninth-level Heavenly Emperor martial artists would find it hard to get within 10 meters of the Gate of the Void too, let alone talk about entering the Gate of the Void. Weakening the Gate of the Void's space-time pressure. Only martial artists who possess space-time attribute essence energy can accomplish it. If you can find a space-time spirit array master, you can weaken the Gate of the Void's space-time pressure. Perhaps you can enter the Gate of the Void. Talking up to here, Sword Elder laughed strangely and said, "But that will destroy the martial Tao foundation of the space-time spirit array master. Who is willing to do that?" This. Yet Tion's face fell. He did not expect that the Gate of the Void was so tyrannical. Only a space-time spirit array master could weaken the space-time pressure by using their martial Tao foundation as the price. Space-time spirit array masters were extremely rare to begin with. Even if one could find one, who would be willing to damage their martial Tao foundation? Sigh. Looks like there's no hope for the heaven and earth spirit pool. Tion laughed bitterly. He naturally wanted to take a look at the legendary heaven and earth spirit pool, but he really had no way. That might not be the case. But right at this time, Sword Elder laughed and said, "The Gate of the Void appearing here will also be affected by the current space-time. The space-time pressure will also slowly weaken on its own. When it weakens to a certain extent, you can enter the Gate of the Void." Weaken on its own? Tion was stunned. His originally disappointed eyes immediately flickered again as he asked, "How long does that take?" If it's quick, several decades. If it's slow, several centuries. But following that, Sword Elder's answer directly made Tion's heart that had just ignited hope sink again. Several decades? Several centuries? Tion had a speechless look. Sword Elder's answer simply made him have the urge to beat someone up. He came to the Xianwang mountain range for the 3 Lives grass. At most, he would return in a few months. How could he have the time to wait for several decades, or even several centuries? Bai Yunfei and the others saw Tion's expression change again and again. They did not know what the latter was thinking, so they could only helplessly look at him. After experiencing the tragic scene just now, the crowd clearly felt panic. They all subconsciously moved away from the Gate of the Void. It really is the Gate of the Void. At this moment, an excited voice suddenly rang out. Then, a figure suddenly appeared in the sky. Chapter 11:33. As the crowd slowly moved away from the Gate of the Void, a figure suddenly appeared in the sky. He looked very young, only in his early 20s. However, his aura was very powerful, and he gave off a very oppressive feeling. Who is this person? The crowd was stunned when they saw the figure that suddenly appeared. When Tion saw the person's face clearly, his face couldn't help but sink because it was none other than Lin Yi. Lin Yi could be said to be an old rival of Tion. Tion didn't expect him to appear at this time. Tion already knew that Lin Yi had arrived at the mysterious Yellow Mountain range ahead of him, but the latter seemed to have arrived later than him. Perhaps the speed of the spirit boat was too fast, but Tion arrived at the mysterious Yellow Mountain range first. 3rd level Heavenly Emperor. Tion's divine sense probed over, his gaze trembling once more. Lin Yi's strength increased even faster than he expected, already reaching 3rd level Heavenly Emperor cultivation. Tion was currently peak 2nd level Heavenly Emperor and was still a bit away from being able to advance to 3rd level Heavenly Emperor. But he was not afraid of Lin Yi, because his sword Tao realm increased, coupled with condensing the soul devouring sword intent. It let him be able to fight any 3rd level Heavenly Emperor powerhouse. Lin Yi also knows about the Gate of the Void. At this time, Tion noticed that Lin Yi's expression was very strange. He seemed to be very interested in the Gate of Nothingness. Tion immediately guessed that Lin Yi's ancient blood demon must have recognized the Gate to the Void. At this time, all of Lin Yi's attention was on the Gate of the Void. Obviously, he didn't notice the existence of Tion. The Gate of the Void, it seems like the heaven and earth spirit pond really exists. Lin Yi's mouth curved into a strange smile as he murmured. He and Tion had the same thought. However, immediately after, Lin Yi's face became gloomy, as if he knew that the Gate of the Void was not to be trifled with and that he couldn't enter. Tion saw the change in Lin Yi's expression and immediately guessed what the latter was thinking. He smiled faintly in his heart and said, "Lin Yi, you are the reincarnation of an ancient blood demon king, and you have a blood demon with the strength of a heavenly emperor. Maybe you have a way to resist the pressure of the Gate to the Void." Tion had already seen Lin Yi's strength. Maybe he had some strange method to enter the Gate of Nothingness. Iya. At this moment, a figure appeared behind Lin Yi. It was a middle-aged man with a resolute face. He looked very dignified. Lord Zhu Tianhua. As soon as the middle-aged man appeared, someone recognized him and cried out in alarm. Absolute heavenly flower. Hearing this name, Nie Tian felt quite startled and immediately remembered that Zhu Yin's father was called Zhu Tianhua. Moreover, this person called Lin Yi, which was evidently a form of address for a junior. As such, he was definitely the city lord of Liangwu City. Father-in-law. Lin Yi nodded slightly, showing a rare look of respect. What is this? What a powerful space-time aura. Zhu Tianhua frowned slightly as he spoke in a deep voice. Lin Yi did not say anything. Instead, he sent a voice transmission to Zhu Tianhua. Zhu Tianhua's expression flickered. He should already know that this was the Void Gate and what was hidden behind it. After a short while, Zhu Tianhua's eyes flickered with an unconcealable heat. He swept his gaze over the crowd below and became vigilant. Father-in-law, let's go. Lin Yi thought for a second and smiled in a strange way. Then he got ready to leave. Zhu Tianhua nodded and prepared to leave. Just at this moment, Lin Yi suddenly frowned. A cold light flashed across his eyes as he locked onto Nie Tian. The corner of his mouth twitched as he spat out two words, Nie Tian. Lin Yi, long time no see. Nie Tian smiled. He knew that Lin Yi hadn't noticed him. It had been the ancient blood beast. As expected, you came to the godly area. It seems like you received my message, said Lin Yi, smiling evilly and staring at Nie Tian. He didn't even try to hide his killing intent. He had asked Lin Feng to tell Nie Tian that he would be waiting for Nie Tian in the godly area. But Nie Tian hadn't come to the godly area for Lin Yi. Even without Lin Yi, Nie Tian would have come anyway. Lin Yi, you think too highly of yourself. Do you really think I came to the god domain just for you? Nie Tian smiled faintly and replied coldly. Facing Nie Tian's provocation, Lin Yi wasn't angry at all. Instead, he laughed. Then, his face darkened and he said, Nie Tian, I don't care why you're here, but I'm sure that I'll kill you. Is that so? Nie Tian shook his head and smiled. He didn't deny it. He had long since grown tired of hearing such threats. He no longer felt anything. Is that the enemy you mentioned? Zhu Tianhua looked coldly at Nie Tian, his eyes flickering with intense hostility. Obviously, he was very satisfied with Lin Yi, who was his son-in-law. Therefore, Lin Yi's enemy was his enemy. Indeed, Lin Yi nodded and said, Nie Tian, I want to see how strong you are now. If you want to fight, I'll accompany you to the end, said Nie Tian, smiling indifferently. How could he retreat? Little boy, if you want to fight, you'll have to kill me first. At this time, an angry voice rang out, and a wild aura burst forth. A figure appeared in front of Nie Tian, blocking his way. He remembered Long Out Yin's words. He had to protect Nie Tian. Shui Yong. When Zhu Tianhua saw Shui Yong, he couldn't help but be surprised. Then he angrily shouted, Back off! He thought that Shui Yong was still a member of the Zhu clan, so he acted like he was a servant. Leader Zhu, I won't step back, said Shui Yong decisively. Zhu Tianhua's expression darkened. He hadn't expected that Shui Yong would actually dare to refute him. After that, he was instantly enraged. His aura surged, and he directly slammed out with his palm. An enormous palm energy bloomed in the air, causing the distorted space around the great void gate to tighten. Leader Zhu, since you want to fight, Shui Yong will accompany you. Shui Yong frowned. The black flame heaven splitting axe appeared in his hand. He stomped on the ground and soared into the sky, chopping down at Zhu Tianhua. Boom! Suddenly, a wave of black flames appeared and condensed into a terrifying black flame blade in the air. Like a flood dragon, it whistled out, and the distorted space around it was affected by a huge force, parting to the sides like a tide. Boom! In the next moment, the horrifying palm print and the black flame blade collided. Terrifying waves of air surged out, erupting with astonishing power and exploding in the distorted space. Zhu Tianhua, who was in the air, was hit by the wave of air. He couldn't help but tremble. He couldn't help but take a few steps back. Almost at the same time, Shui Yong's figure suddenly stopped. He was directly pressed down like a boulder falling to the ground. "Shui Yong!" shouted Nie Tian when he saw this scene. He rushed to Shui Yong's side. Chapter 1134. After confirming that Shui Yong was fine, Nie Tian felt more at ease. Only now did he realize that Shui Yong's strength was much stronger than he had expected. Zhu Tianhua's strength was much stronger than the black-robed elder beside the Godslayer young master. It was not easy for Shui Yong to take one attack from him. Nie Tian discovered that Zhu Tianhua's strength was already peak 5th level Heavenly Emperor and might break through to 6th level Heavenly Emperor at any time. At this moment, the surrounding spectators were stunned as well, and they looked to Shui Yong with expressions of disbelief. Obviously, they did not expect that Shui Yong would actually be able to receive a strike from Zhu Tianhua. Zhu Tianhua was the city lord of Martial Beacon Beam City. He was quite famous in the Eastern River Deity region and could be considered an expert who had been famous for a long time. As for Shui Yong, he was a completely unknown person. The difference in status between the two was too great. Shui Yong being able to exchange blows with Zhu Tianhua was beyond everyone's expectations. Zhu Tianhua's figure stood high up in the sky, and his gaze could not help sinking. Then he laughed coldly and said coldly, "Shui Yong, so you're already a 5th level Heavenly Emperor. No wonder you dare to be arrogant to this city lord. I never thought that a dog that I had raised for so many years would bite its owner in the end." Shui Yong's face sank when he heard Zhu Tianhua's words. He clenched his fists and said, "City Lord Zhu, I, Shui Yong, am only a mercenary of the Zhu family, not a dog of the Zhu family." Nie Tian suddenly raised his head and locked his gaze on Zhu Tianhua. He said in a cold voice, "Like daughter, like father. Zhu Yan likes to call people dogs, and you also like to call people dogs. I wonder what kind of people from your Zhu clan are. Are they worse than pigs and dogs?" "You." Zhu Tianhua's face darkened. There was a ball of anger in his chest that he couldn't swallow or spit out. "Father-in-law, don't lower yourself to his level. He's just an ant. Let him live a few more days." Just as Zhu Tianhua was about to fly into a rage, Lin Yi suddenly stepped forward. He cast a cold glance at Nie Tian, seemingly plotting something. Nie Tian was also stunned. He didn't expect Lin Yi to give up just like that. Zhu Tianhua glanced at Lin Yi and actually restrained his anger. He looked cold at Nie Tian and said, "Smelly brat, I will spare you this time." After saying that, Zhu Tianhua and Lin Yi actually turned around and left. Nie Tian looked at their backs and couldn't help but shake his head. He didn't know why Lin Yi suddenly left. This wasn't in line with his style. "Nie Tian, let's meet again in 3 days." Just as Nie Tian was puzzled, Lin Yi's voice suddenly appeared in his mind. After this voice, Lin Yi's aura completely disappeared. "What do you mean?" Nie Tian laughed, but he was getting more and more confused. Lin Yi suddenly left, which made him feel very strange, and then he said, "See you in 3 days," which was even more puzzling. "Let him be. Either way, I can't kill him right now," Nie Tian said in his heart, and no longer thought about it. Lin Yi was the reincarnation of an ancient blood demon king. Terrifying blood demon power was hidden in his body. Even if Nie Tian had the ability to kill him, he did not dare to kill either. It was indeed a headache. The crowd looked at Nie Tian and Shui Yong dumbfoundedly, not knowing what grudges the two had with Zhu Tianhua and Lin Yi. "Brother Nie, are you guys all right?" At this time, Bai Yunfei walked over, his expression somewhat awkward. Because he did not step forward just now, he was afraid that Nie Tian would be displeased because of it. "We're fine." Nie Tian smiled faintly and did not take it to heart. Bai Yunfei's identity was not simple. Furthermore, he just got to know them. Not taking action was also excusable. That guy called Lin Yi is very strong. There seems to be a terrifying power hidden in his body. Bai Xiaofei walked over and said with a cold look, Lin Yi was only around 20 years old and actually had 3rd-level Heavenly Emperor strength. This made Bai Xiaofei very surprised. Nie Tian glanced at Bai Xiaofei. He did not expect that the latter's perception ability was still pretty good, seemingly seeing through the blood demon power on Lin Yi's body. When Bai Yunfei heard Bai Xiaofei's words, his gaze could not help trembling. He knew that this younger brother of his had extremely high standards, even looking down on the four great young masters. But he made such an evaluation of Lin Yi. This showed that Lin Yi's strength was indeed strange. Brother Nya, what plans do you guys have next? Bai Yunfei looked at Nye Tian and asked. But Nye Tian looked at the gate of the void. His eyes could not help having some regret, as he said, I still have some things. I'm preparing to find something in the Xianwang mountain range. We'll take our leave here. Bai Yunfei nodded with a smile and said, farewell here. See you again. Following that, the Bai family's three siblings directly stepped onto the spirit boat and disappeared into the void. Nye Tian took one last look at the gate of the void, no longer reluctant to stay, and then left. Although he knew that the passage to the spiritual pool of heaven and earth was behind the gate of the void, he could not approach the gate of the void, so he could only look at it and sigh. The others also slowly left, leaving only the gate of the void in the air, which was still constantly rotating. Mister, are we going to look for the vitality vein next? Shui Yong, who had already returned to normal, followed behind Nye Tian and asked with a smile. Stinking brat, we did not come to the Xianhuang mountain range to look for the vitality vein. Nye Tian could not help but smile as he looked at the depths of the Xianhuang mountain range with a strange expression. This trip to the Xianhuang mountain range was to find the 10,000-year-old Three Lives grass, which was the most important thing for Nye Tian. However, the Xianhuang mountain range was very vast, spanning hundreds of kilometers, and there were various cliffs and caves. It was not easy to find the Three Lives grass in such a situation. In the next few days, Nye Tian and Shui Yong kept searching in the Xianhuang mountain range, especially in places with harsh environments such as valleys and cliffs. Unfortunately, after a few days, the two of them found nothing. They did not even find an ordinary Three Lives grass. Could it be that the information Lan Ting gave me was wrong? Nye Tian could not help but frown as he walked in a canyon. The news that the 100-year-old Three Lives grass was in the Xianhuang mountain range came from Lan Ting, so he should not have lied to Nye Tian. At this time, Nye Tian suddenly thought of something and asked Shui Yong, how many days have we been searching? 3 days. Shui Yong hesitated for a moment. He had been too engrossed in the search and had forgotten the time. 3 days, Nye Tian pondered, and the corners of his mouth could not help but rise as he muttered. Lin Yi told me to see him in 3 days. Will he appear at the gate of the void again? Let's go and have a look. With this thought, Nye Tian decided to go to the gate of the void first. Anyway, there was no progress in finding the Three Lives grass. Maybe Lin Yi had a way to enter the gate of the void. Although Nye Tian faintly felt that there was a conspiracy, he still decided to go and have a look. After making this decision, Nye Tian did not delay any longer. He directly left the canyon and went to the gate of the void. Just as Nye Tian and Shui Yong left the canyon, they saw 2 giant iron-backed dragonhawks in the sky, confronting each other. Nye Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. Although the 2 iron-backed dragonhawks were thousands of meters away from him, he could still see the people on them clearly. He could not help but laugh. It's them. Nye Tian knew the 2 iron-backed dragonhawks. One was Child God Slayer, and the other was Zhu Yan. Chapter 1135. Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. Nye Tian saw the 2 steel-backed dragon eagles in the sky and couldn't help but twitch his lips. Young Master Godslayer and Zhu Yan had bumped into each other. But this time, Zhu Yan had Lin Yi and Zhu Tianhua by her side. Nye Tian's eyes sparkled. He was ready to watch a good show. Child Godslayer was an extremely arrogant person, and Lin Yi was not a persimmon that anyone could bully. When the two of them met, it would definitely be a good show. At that moment, a few more steel-backed dragon eagles appeared in the distance. They were all people who had arrived at the mysterious Yellow Mountain Range. When they saw young Master Godslayer's group, they stopped and watched from afar. With these words, Nye Tian looked up and found the Bai siblings' spiritual starship. However, he didn't make a sound, as if he didn't want to alert them. Miss Ju, up in the sky, young Master Godslayer's voice was cold. His voice was hoarse and filled with anger. His cold eyes were locked on Julian. Julian knew how overbearing young Master Godslayer was. She took a step back in fear. Seeing this, Lin Yi's eyes narrowed slightly. At this moment, he was using the Eye of Blood Demon to control the ironback dragonhawk under his feet to prevent it from being scared away by the other dragonhawks. Julian, who is this? Lin Yi glanced at young Master Godslayer and asked cold. Extreme panic could be seen on Julian's delicate face. She transmitted her voice to Lin Yi and told him what had happened. What an arrogant man. After hearing Julian's words, Lin Yi's eyes suddenly darkened. His eyes revealed contempt and killing intent at the same time. This man is very strong. He has the Heaven Murder Sect behind him. Do not offend him. Zhu Tianhua sensed Lin Yi's killing intent. The Heaven Murder Sect? Lin Yi smiled. The disdain in his eyes intensified. Julian, this is not over yet. This young master's words from before are still valid. Cripple your own Yuan spirit Yuan meridian, then kowtow and apologize, and this young master will spare your life. If you don't, then I'll kill everyone in the Zhu clan. Young Master Godslayer said coldly. His eyes were cold and filled with malice. Hiss! The crowd sucked in a breath of cold air when they heard the cold voice. He had long heard that the god-slaying young master was arrogant and domineering, but he did not expect it to be to this extent. In front of City Lord Liang Wu, he ordered his daughter to destroy her Yuan spirit Yuan meridian and kowtow to apologize. I wonder how Liang Wu City's young lady managed to offend Prince Godslayer. City Lord Liang Wu is going to suffer, the spectators thought to themselves. They looked at Prince Godslayer with dread. Child Godslayer, you've crossed the line. Naturally, Zhu Tianhua couldn't pretend to be mute at this time. He took a step forward and said in a heavy tone, This city lord already knows about the matter between you and Julian. It's just a misunderstanding. There's no need to take someone's life. Shut up. As soon as Zhu Tianhua's voice fell, Godslayer young master roared in anger. He pointed at Zhu Tianhua and shouted, Zhu Tianhua, this young master knows that you're the city lord of Marshal Liang, but in my eyes, you're nothing but an ant. If you dare to interfere, this young master will have the Heaven Murder Sect destroy your city. Insolence. Prince Godslayer's insolence made people's hair stand on end. Killing someone else's daughter and not letting others interfere? How overbearing. Zhu Tianhua's face turned red and green. His body trembled slightly. He didn't expect that Prince Godslayer wouldn't even put him, the city lord, in his eyes. Nie Tian watched from the ground and couldn't help but smile. He thought to himself, Zhu Tianhua, you and your daughter like to call others dogs. But in front of Prince Godslayer, you're worse than a dog. Sir, this Prince Godslayer is too arrogant. I think he's the most arrogant one. Shui Yong stared at Prince Godslayer in anger. After all, he had received the Zhu clan's favor. He's the most arrogant one? Bullshit. Nie Tian glanced at Prince Godslayer with disdain. Prince Godslayer was indeed arrogant, but his arrogance and Long Outyin were two different things. The reason why Long Outyin was called the #1 madman was because he dared to be insolent to those who were stronger than him. The 9 monarchs of the Heaven Realm, the pinnacle of the Way of the Sword, everything that he could not stand were all bullshit. However, Prince Godslayer only dared to be arrogant in front of the weak. If he met a true expert, would he still dare to be so arrogant? Calling Prince Godslayer the most arrogant one was too much of an insult. Father. At this time, Julian saw that Zhu Tianhua's expression wasn't right. He seemed to be afraid. Zhu Tianhua couldn't help but shout, afraid that he would really give up on her. Zhu Tianhua couldn't help but tremble and take a step back. His eyes flickered with hesitation. Ha ha ha. Prince Godslayer saw Zhu Tianhua's reaction and laughed even more arrogantly. He shouted, The dignified city lord Liang Wu is actually a coward who is afraid of death. In order to live, you don't even want your daughter? Prince Godslayer, you... Zhu Tianhua's old face was so gloomy that it seemed as if blood would drip out of it. He didn't expect Zhu Tianhua to say it out loud. In this case, he really had no way out. If he really gave up on Zhu Yin, what would the people here think of him? Prince Godslayer is so vicious. Everyone could see what was going on. Their eyes trembled violently. Prince Godslayer first scared Zhu Tianhua away. Then he coldly ridiculed Zhu Tianhua, putting him in a dilemma. He was simply forcing Zhu Tianhua to the road of death. Prince Godslayer stared at Zhu clan's father and daughter cold. He wanted to completely destroy Zhu clan. Only then would he be able to dispel the hatred in his heart. Of course, he hadn't found Nie Tian yet. If he found Nie Tian, he would definitely use a cruel method to kill him. Prince Godslayer, not only are you arrogant, but you're also vicious. Nie Tian looked at Prince Godslayer and smiled faintly. He had long discovered that there were two gray-robed old men behind Prince Godslayer. They were both 5th-level Heavenly Emperor strength. This was Prince Godslayer's capital to be arrogant. If not for these two people, he might not dare to be arrogant in front of Zhu Tianhua. Enough! Right at this time, an ice-cold voice suddenly sounded out. Lin Yi took a step forward, a pair of cold eyes staring at Prince Godslayer. The corners of his mouth suddenly twitched, and he squeezed out a word from his throat. Scram. His voice was not loud, but it was like a clap of thunder landing beside everyone's ears, directly stunning everyone. Everyone's gazes turned to Lin Yi, their eyes revealing incredulous surprise, seemingly suspecting that their ears heard wrongly. No one thought that a person who was basically ignored by Prince Godslayer would suddenly come forward to speak. Furthermore, he was so insolent, directly telling Prince Godslayer to scram. Prince Godslayer was also instantly stunned and did not react for a long time, completely not daring to believe his own ears. After a full few seconds, Prince Godslayer seemed to have woken up from a dream. The fury in his heart could no longer be contained. It flared up, and even his face became savage as he directly roared, "You're courting death." Chapter 1136. Nie Tian's eyes trembled when he saw the scene in the sky. His eyes were burning with anticipation. He really wanted to know who was stronger, Godslayer or Lin Yi. Both Godslayer and Lin Yi had once lost to Nie Tian. However, Nie Tian and Lin Yi's battle was a long time ago, and he and Godslayer had only exchanged one move. If Nie Tian had to judge which of the two was stronger, it would be hard to say. Fool! Facing Prince Godslayer's furious attack, Lin Yi showed no fear at all. Instead, he sneered and soared into the sky. A blood-red ocean appeared behind him, emitting a terrifying, bloodthirsty aura. Almost at the same time, Lin Yi's eyes turned blood-red. A blood-red vortex was released from his palm. It spun crazily and surged with a terrifying bloody aura. What a terrifying aura! The crowd's eyes trembled when they felt the bloody aura. The steel-backed dragon eagles around them involuntarily retreated as if they felt a great threat. Demonic blood lotus! Nie Tian's eyes darkened when he saw the blood-red vortex. It was the demonic blood lotus that Lin Yi had fused with Xin Xiao and Yu Jin's bloodline power. Nie Tian had fought with Lin Yi before, so he knew how powerful the demonic blood lotus was. It was comparable to a top-notch bloodline power. Prince Godslayer felt a suffocating pressure when he saw the blood demon lotus. His brows couldn't help but twitch as a hint of fear appeared in his eyes. Die! At that moment, Lin Yi screamed and thrust his palm. The demonic blood lotus was like a sword released from a bow, slamming into the golden palm in the sky. You dare to be so arrogant before me with only this much power? Godslayer regained his composure and sneered. He seemed very confident. Boom! However, just as the demonic blood lotus was about to collide with the golden palm, it suddenly blossomed like a lotus in full bloom. Blood-colored petals bloomed, and the demonic blood lotus expanded thousands of times in an instant, turning into a blood-colored mountain. Terrifying bloodline power erupted, shooting out blood-colored blades that filled the sky. Crack, 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 bang. The power of the demonic blood lotus bombarded the golden palm. Countless tearing sounds rang out, followed by a muffled sound, and the golden palm collapsed. Young master, be careful. At this moment, the two gray-robed old men behind Godslayer sensed that something was wrong. They let out a cry and attacked at the same time. Two mountainous fists containing the power of law appeared and attacked the demonic blood lotus. The two of them were fifth-level heavenly emperors. When they attacked at the same time, the power was earth-shattering. The surrounding space suddenly trembled. Under the impact of the two mighty forces, the entire sky seemed like it was about to collapse. Yet Tion's gaze trembled slightly when he saw this. These two were very strong. Either of them was not weaker than Zhu Tianhua. No wonder Godslayer dared to be so arrogant. Lin Yi is in danger. Yet Tion's heart trembled. He was ready to attack at any time. He obviously did not want to save Lin Yi, but he had to, because no one else knew Lin Yi's true identity, not even Lin Yi himself. If Lin Yi's physical body was destroyed by these two, the ancient blood demon power in his body would be released. That would be unimaginable power. At that time, everyone present would die. Boom! Boom! In the sky, two fists slammed into the blood demon lotus, causing a terrifying explosion. The blood demon lotus could no longer withstand the impact of the two fists. Its blood-colored petals withered and fell to the ground, shattering into pieces. Seeing this scene, Tion's gaze trembled violently. He no longer hesitated. His figure soared into the sky, and meteor wings appeared behind him. His speed was extremely fast, like the wind and lightning. The moment the demonic blood lotus collapsed, Lin Yi did not show panic on his face. Instead, he sneered, "Blood Demon Realm, open." Everyone saw the blood-colored sea behind Lin Yi surging with evil black runes, instantly condensing into a huge skull. In the next instant, the black runes became extremely violet. Endless dark energy was released, spreading 10,000 meters away. A terrifying blood demon realm was formed, enveloping Godslayer and the two gray-robed old men. When Tion saw this scene, his eyes narrowed. His figure froze in midair. He felt a huge pressure descend, forcing him to retreat. Blood demon realm. Tion's figure hurriedly retreated several thousand meters. He instantly understood that Lin Yi had long expected that the two gray-robed old men would make a move, so he prepared to open the blood demon realm in advance. Lin Yi, you are indeed cunning. Tion smiled bitterly. It seemed that he had made a move unnecessarily. What a terrifying barrier power. At this time, the crowd saw that the space 10,000 meters in midair was enveloped by the blood-colored barrier. At the same time, they felt a terrifying pressure. They could not help but retreat again, fear in their eyes. At this time, the crowd finally understood why Lin Yi dared to challenge Godslayer. It turned out that he had such a strange strength. Your strength is actually on the other side. Zhu Tianhua was completely stunned when he saw this scene. He did not expect Lin Yi's strength to be so terrifying. The blood demon realm in front of him made him tremble in fear. Lin Yi, Zhu Yan's beautiful eyes flickered with surprise. Tion watched from the side and smiled bitterly. He thought to himself, this time, Godslayer Young Master is dead for sure. Lin Yi's blood demon realm was very terrifying. It could suppress a martial artist's Yuan Meridian. Even a fifth-level Heavenly Emperor powerhouse would at most have the strength of a third-level Heavenly Emperor in the Blood Demon Realm. Tion had once fallen into the Blood Demon Realm. If not for the fact that his star power was not suppressed by any power, it would have been very difficult for him to break out of the Blood Demon Realm. In the Blood Demon Realm, the two gray-robed martial artists were terrified. Their old faces turned as white as paper. They felt that in the Blood Demon Realm, their Yuan Meridian was greatly suppressed. It seemed that their strength was only at the third-level Heavenly Emperor. This is impossible. Godslayer Young Master was even more panicked. He roared angrily, his eyes filled with great disbelief. Previously, his attention had been on Zhu Tianhua and Zhu Yan. He did not even look at Lin Yi. Who would have thought that the latter was actually in existence, far more terrifying than Zhu Tianhua? This is your grave. At this time, Lin Yi's voice sounded. It was cold and gloomy, like the death knell of hell, knocking on the hearts of Godslayer Young Master and the others. Arrogant. The two gray-robed old men calmed down slightly. They roared angrily and attacked at the same time. Even if their strength was suppressed, they were still third-level Heavenly Emperors. Lin Yi also had third-level Heavenly Emperor strength. 2 against 1, they still had a chance of winning. Chapter 1137. Inside the Blood Demon Profound World, 2 gray-clothed old men attacked at the same time, wanting to end Lin Yi's life. However, their figures had just moved when 2 blood-colored sharp blades suddenly flashed past before their eyes. Virtually without any time to react, it was like a flash of light. The next moment, the 2 gray-clothed old men screamed at the same time. They felt a chill on their necks, and suddenly, a warm liquid gushed out of their necks. Their heads flew up in the air, and their faces were full of shock. Their eyes were full of despair, and their bodies stiffened in an instant. 2 5th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artists were actually instantly killed by Lin Yi, dying with their heads chopped off. What terrifying ocular power! Seeing this scene, Nie Tian's gaze trembled violently, his shock considerable. Lin Yi's strength exceeded his expectations. After entering the Heaven Realm, not only did Lin Yi's strength reach 3rd-level Heavenly Emperor, what was even more terrifying was that his Eye of Blood Demon seemed to have become even more terrifying. Not only could he unleash the Blood Demon Profound World, but he could also directly condense a bloodlight, killing people imperceptibly. The Eye of Blood Demon attacked very quickly, without any reaction time at all, killing in an instant. Such a fast killing technique, can I dodge it? Nie Tian asked himself in his heart. As long as Nie Tian used the holographic divine mark, the holographic projection could predict Lin Yi's attack timing. Coupled with the speed of the meteor wings, he had a very high assurance of directly avoiding Lin Yi's demonic eye attack. But the demonic eye attack just now, Lin Yi clearly did not use his full strength. Who knew what other shocking means his Eye of Blood Demon still had? The reincarnation of an ancient Blood Demon King is indeed formidable. Thinking of Lin Yi's true identity, Nie Tian could not help sighing. According to Elder Sword, the Blood Demon King was a peak powerhouse of the 12 ancient demon clans, even almost becoming the leader of the 12 demon kings. Indeed, very terrifying. Lin Yi clearly had not fully awakened the blood demon power in his body yet. If it was fully awakened, then it would really be unimaginably horrifying. I must kill him before he fully awakens the blood demon memories. Thinking up to this point, Nie Tian firmed the idea of killing Lin Yi in his heart. Lin Yi, this person's methods were cruel and scrupulous in order to obtain power. He absolutely could not be left alive. When the surrounding people saw the scene in the Blood Demon Profound World, their gazes all became sluggish, as they said in a daze. 2 5th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artists died, just like that. It was seriously too strange. Seeing this, Zhu Tianhua's face turned as pale as a sheet, and beads of sweat began to form on his forehead. Lin Yi killed the heaven-killing sex people. Furthermore, it was 2 5th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artists. His status in the heaven-killing sect was likely not low. How could the heaven-killing sect take it lying down? Thinking of this, Zhu Tianhua couldn't help but tremble. However, in the next moment, he calmed down and thought to himself, if the Heaven Murder sect really wants to destroy my Zhu family, I can only ask the old ancestor to come forward. When Zhu Tianhua thought of the Zhu family's patriarch, his expression became much calmer. An intense killing intent even appeared in his eyes. No one knew that the Zhu family had an old ancestor, and this old ancestor's status was incomparably high. He was someone that no power in the East River Divine Realm could afford to offend. However, the Zhu family patriarch had warned Zhu Tianhua that he wouldn't appear unless it was absolutely necessary. Therefore, Zhu Tianhua wouldn't ask for the Zhu family's patriarch's help until the very last moment. You killed them? In the Blood Demon world, young Master Godslayer was stunned for a long time. Finally, he reacted. His face was full of fear as he looked at Lin Yi. Not only will I kill them, but I'll also kill you. Lin Yi's lips curled into a faint smile. His cold smile sent chills down people's spines. He walked towards young Master Godslayer step by step. The killing intent on his body also became more and more intense. You can't kill me. I'm young Master Godslayer, the young sect master of the heaven-killing sect. If you kill me, the heaven-killing sect will not let you off. Young Master Godslayer's voice was hoarse and trembling. He couldn't stop retreating, almost falling down. At this time, he still wanted to use the heaven-killing sect to threaten Lin Yi. Lin, he was someone who didn't fear heaven and earth. Why would he care about a puny heaven-killing sect? You're a madman. You're worse than dog shit. Nie Tian looked at young Master Godslayer with the corner of his mouth slightly twitching. If it was Long Out Yin, no matter how strong the enemy was, he absolutely wouldn't say a single word, let alone beg for mercy. He would only curse. That was the real arrogance. As for young Master Godslayer, he was at most arrogant. At this time, Nie Tian's eyes suddenly narrowed. He suddenly felt a terrifying aura rushing towards him, bringing with it a violent rage. Watch out! In an instant, Nie Tian felt something was wrong. His eyes darkened, and he shouted, "Who dares to hurt the people of my heaven-killing sect?" Just as Nie Tian's voice faded, a tyrannical voice rang in the sky. Then, a huge silver claw appeared out of thin air and pressed down on the blood demon world. Boom! Crack! In the next moment, the silver claw descended on the blood demon world. The whole world suddenly sank, and a violent tearing sound was heard. A crack was directly torn in the blood demon world. Break for me! Bang! Then, an even more violent sound rang out. The silver claw suddenly exerted force, and the entire blood demon world collapsed. The blood-red runes dissipated in the void. A miserable scream rang out. Lin Yi's figure was directly sent flying, leaving a bloody trail in the air. The sudden scene made the crowd's eyes tremble again. Their expressions stiffened, not knowing what had happened. What was that silver claw that suddenly appeared? How could it be so terrifying that it could tear the blood demon world to pieces? At this time, Nie Tian's face also stiffened. For words appeared in his mind. Silver Wolf's hand. He was very sure that the silver claw that broke the blood demon world was the Silver Wolf's hand. The Silver Wolf's hand, like the Blade Dragon arm and the 8 desolate ghost bone, was one of the 4 great mysterious arms. Nie Tian did not expect that the Silver Wolf's hand would appear here. Godslayer, are you all right? At this time, a figure in black appeared in the sky and directly descended next to young Master Godslayer. Father! Young Master Godslayer turned to look at the person next to him and actually burst into tears. If this person had come half a step later, he would already be a corpse by now. Sect leader of the heaven-killing sect. Someone in the crowd calmed down. When he saw the face of the figure in black, he could not help but cry out in a sharp voice. Shi Wushang. When Zhu Tianhua saw that person, his face instantly stiffened. His whole body was petrified, and he subconsciously shouted a name. The person who came was none other than the sect leader of the heaven-killing sect, Shi Wushang. Nie Tian looked at Shi Wushang. The latter was a middle-aged man with a tall and sturdy figure, but his face was extremely thin. His eyes were as sharp as an eagle's, flickering with a sharp light. His aura was always concealed, but he still gave off a strong, oppressive feeling. Chapter 1138. Nie Tian looked at Shi Wushang. One of the latter's arms was suffused with a silvery white luster. There was actually a layer of faint light circulating on it. An extremely mysterious power surged, growing and multiplying endlessly. Silver Wolf Hand is indeed impressive. Nie Tian's eyes flickered with a blazing light, and he cried out in surprise in his heart. Lin Yi's blood demon profound world was very strong. Its defensive degree was not inferior to a rank 8 spirit array. Breaking it from the inside was already very difficult. Breaking it from the outside was even harder, requiring at least 8th level Heavenly Emperor strength. Although Shi Wushang had 8th level Heavenly Emperor strength, he did not use much essence energy to break open the blood demon profound world. He practically purely used the power of the Silver Wolf Hand. But more importantly, Nie Tian detected that Shi Wushang attacked from several tens of thousands of meters away. The silver wolf hand released from the void directly shattered the blood demon profound world. This kind of means was truly shocking. Nie Tian did not expect that a powerhouse like Shi Wushang would actually appear in the Xianhuang mountain range. Shi Wushang was the Heaven Murder Sect's sect master. The Heaven Murder Sect was a first-rate faction of the East River Divine Realm. Hence, he was considered a pinnacle powerhouse of the East River Divine Realm. Could it be that he also believed that a heaven-earth spiritual pool really appeared in the Xianhuang mountain range? With such a powerhouse appearing, things are a little troublesome. Nie Tian's brows furrowed. If Shi Wushang really wanted to kill Lin Yi, then it would be terrible. Shi Wushang had 8th level Heavenly Emperor strength. If he attacked with full strength, no one present could stop him. At this time, young Master Godslayer suddenly pointed at Lin Yi and roared with a savage look, "Father, kill him for me." Lin Yi nearly killed him. How could he let him off easily? The current Lin Yi was in a somewhat sorry state, his complexion pale, blood flowing from his eyes, his entire face appearing cold and demonic. The blood demon profound world being directly torn apart by the silver wolf hand dealt a huge blow to him, making his eye of blood demon suffer heavy injuries. His strength also fell greatly. "Boy, who are you?" Shi Wushang looked at Lin Yi cold, but was not in a hurry to make a move. Instead, he spoke in a deep voice. At the same time, his divine sense swept over the latter, and his eyes could not help revealing a look of surprise. He suddenly realized that there was a huge hidden power in Lin Yi's body. This power actually made him feel threatened. Although Lin Yi only had 3rd level Heavenly Emperor strength, his actual combat strength was very strange. He could actually easily kill 2 5th level Heavenly Emperor martial artists. Furthermore, that blood color barrier was even more terrifying. Withstanding the silver wolf's hand strike head-on, it withstood the majority of the impact. That was how Lin Yi survived. If it weren't for the blood demon world, Lin Yi wouldn't have been able to withstand the silver wolf's attack. This kid can't be allowed to live. In an instant, icy cold killing intent arose in Shi Wushang's heart, and his eyes flashed with piercingly cold killing intent. Lin Yi looked at Shi Wushang cold and didn't say anything. Then, he turned to look at Nie Tian. His eyes were clearly asking for help. And Nie Tian's eyes narrowed. He didn't expect Lin Yi to ask for help at this time. Could it be that he already knows my identity? Nie Tian frowned, and his face sank. It seemed that Lin Yi had understood something. He knew that Nie Tian wouldn't let him die, so he asked Nie Tian for help. Save or not? Nie Tian was faced with a choice. If he didn't save Lin Yi, it was very likely that Lin Yi would die at Shi Wushang's hands. Once the blood demon force was released, it would be difficult for everyone present to escape. Nie Tian had the meteor wings, so he was naturally confident that he could escape even if the blood demon force in Lin Yi's body was released. Save. However, the next moment, Nie Tian made a decision. He had to save Lin Yi, not for anything else, but for the hidden dragon royal bloodline in Lin Yi's body. Nie Tian was still thinking about merging the spirit dragon royal bloodline and the hidden dragon royal bloodline to form a supreme dragon bloodline. Therefore, Lin Yi couldn't die yet. As soon as he thought of this, Nie Tian's figure moved and directly appeared next to Lin Yi. Who is this person? The crowd couldn't help but be stunned when they saw a figure suddenly appear next to Lin Yi. Everyone knew that Shi Wushang wanted to kill Lin Yi at this time, and even Zhu Tianhua stayed far away. Wasn't Nie Tian courting death by standing there at this time? Sir, Shui Yong was suddenly stunned, but then he immediately reacted and shouted. His voice was hoarse. Go back. I know what I'm doing. Nie Tian directly transmitted his voice to Shui Yong, not letting him come over. Facing an opponent like Shi Wushang, even if Shui Yong appeared, it would be useless. On the other side, in the spirit boat hidden in the void. Big brother, is this silver-haired kid crazy? Bai Xiaoya was stunned, and her beautiful eyes flashed violently. She looked at Nie Tian with a look of disbelief. Bai Yunfei didn't know why Nie Tian did this, so he just shook his head slightly. Then he noticed that Bai Xiaofei, who was next to him, was frowning, as if he had discovered something. He couldn't help but ask, Xiaofei, did you discover something? Bai Yunfei knew that his second brother's origin spirit was different from ordinary people. It was a variant spirit with strong perception and could sense all kinds of hidden powers. Bai Xiaofei's expression was strange. He must have discovered something shocking. Big brother. Bai Xiaofei's sharp eyes moved back and forth between Ye Tian and Lin Yi. His face became more and more gloomy. He said, Ye Tian and Lin Yi seem to have two powers of the same attribute in their bodies. If I'm not wrong, it should be the legendary dragon's vein, a very terrifying dragon's vein. If their dragon's veins fuse together, they will definitely be able to explode with shocking power. Dragon's vein. Bai Yunfei and Bai Xiaoya were stunned. Dragon's veins were something that only existed in legends. Could there really be people in this world with dragon's veins? But Bai Yunfei was very sure that Bai Xiaofei's perception would not be wrong. Bai Xiaofei could sense dragon's veins in both Nie Tian and Lin Yi. If Nie Tian heard Bai Xiaofei's words, he would definitely be dumbfounded. It wasn't strange that Bai Xiaofei could sense Nie Tian's dragon qi. Anyone with a strong perception could do it. But the dragon's vein in Lin Yi's body was the royal vein of Hidden Dragon, which was hidden very well. So many people in the Dragon Rebel clan, including the chief elder, the Dragon Rebel clan leader, and even Ye Tian, who had the holographic divine glyphs, couldn't sense Lin Yi's dragon's vein. What kind of original spirit was Bai Xiaofei? How could he sense the royal vein of Hidden Dragon? An original spirit that was more perceptive than the holographic divine glyphs was really weird. Nie Tian. At this moment, Zhu Yin saw a figure suddenly appear next to Lin Yi. She was surprised. When she saw it was Nie Tian, she screamed in surprise. Bastard, it's you. Almost at the same time, young Master Godslayer's voice came. He looked at Nie Tian viciously, spitting fire of anger. He wanted to burn Nie Tian into ashes, grind his bones, and scatter his ashes. He hated Zhu Yin, but he hated Nie Tian even more. Originally, he was thinking of finding Nie Tian and then taking revenge. He didn't expect Nie Tian to show up on his own. This was really an unexpected surprise. Godslayer, you know this guy? Shi Wushang was also stunned when he saw someone suddenly appear in front of him. Disdain flashed in his eyes. He also sensed a strange power in Nie Tian. But at the same time, he sensed that Nie Tian's strength was in the second level of Heavenly Emperor. Chapter 1139. Father, this guy injured me before. Kill him for me. When Godslayer young master saw Nie Tian appear, a malicious light flickered in his eyes. But he suddenly felt that letting Nie Tian die directly was too easy on him. He actually said, Father, cripple him for me. This child wants to kill him personally. Use the cruelest means to kill him. Shi Wushang's gaze turned slightly dark, seemingly like even he could not put up with it anymore. But Shi Wushang immediately shook his head, looking at Nie Tian very doubtfully. Lin Yi had third-level Heavenly Emperor strength. Being able to defeat Godslayer young master was already monstrous talent. While Nie Tian only had second-level Heavenly Emperor strength, he could actually defeat Godslayer young master too. Wasn't he even more monstrous? Shi Wushang could not help giving Godslayer young master a glance, seemingly doubting whether the latter was still that son that made him proud. Forget it. Kill these two stinking brats first before talking. Shi Wushang sighed inwardly. Lin Yi and Nie Tian were both young, but their strengths were both very formidable. These two people could not be left alive and must be eliminated. At this time, Nie Tian and Lin Yi exchanged a glance, their gazes both very strange. The two people did not expect that there would actually still be a time to join hands once more. The current Nie Tian and Lin Yi already had a very deep understanding of each other, and even had a considerable tacit understanding. At the same instant, the two people's entire bodies released berserk fighting intent at the same time. The aura around them skyrocketed frenziedly. What are these two people doing? Could it be that they still want to fight with the heaven-killing sect master? When the crowd saw this scene, Their gazes could not help trembling, revealing looks of disbelief one after another. Looking at Nie Tian and Lin Yi's actions, it seemed like they wanted to fight with Shi Wushang, a second-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist and a third-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist joining hands and wanting to contend with an eighth-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist. These two people were either lunatics or idiots. Humph! Shi Wushang sensed the two people's wild fighting intent and was first taken aback, then immediately smiled coldly and said indifferently, "Just two ants. Even if tied together, they're still ants." Shi Wushang was an eighth-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist and also had the Silver Wolf's hand. How could he place Nie Tian and Lin Yi in his sights? In his opinion, Nie Tian and Lin Yi were two little ants that could be crushed and annihilated with a casual move. Nie Tian, I believe you also want to know the power of the 5-yang dragon vein and the 9-star dragon vein, right? At this time, Lin Yi said faintly. He looked at Nie Tian with a strange look and said with a playful expression, he wanted to obtain Nie Tian's 9-star dragon vein, so he wanted to see the power of dual veins. Furthermore, Nie Tian is also interested in the 5-yang dragon vein. He would definitely want to see the power of the fusion of the two veins. Both of them had ulterior motives and were scheming against each other. Their temporary alliance was only forced by the circumstances. Of course, Nie Tian smiled faintly. Without hesitation, his body trembled as a sea of lightning appeared behind him. The purplish-golden lightning enveloped the space within a radius of 10,000 meters. Huge bolts of lightning danced in the air, like thunder from the 9 heavens. What a terrifying power! The crowd's gaze trembled violently. They did not expect that a second-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist could release such horrifying power. Everyone retreated in unison, leaving the center of the battle. Very good. Lin Yi smiled faintly, a hint of a strange smile emerging on his face. Immediately, his entire body released terrifying crimson dragon chi. It was precisely the 5-yang dragon chi. Roar! Immediately, a dragon roar sounded out. The surrounding space shook with a loud bang. It was as if there were countless, enormous dragons wreaking havoc in the space. That kind of boundlessly majestic aura made people tremble in fear. When everyone saw this scene, they sucked in a cold breath in unison, their gazes all turning sluggish. Amen? Shi Wushang felt two massive dragon might pouncing on him. His brows involuntarily tightened, unable to conceal the surprise in his eyes. Dragon vein. In the next instant, Shi Wushang reacted and cried out in surprise. His face revealed an insolent look, his eyes surging with scorching heat as he laughed loudly and said, "I didn't expect that the two of you are actually people who are born with dragon veins. No wonder your strength is so strange." Dragon vein. The crowd was stunned again. Then they all understood that the vast aura in the space was dragon chi. Two stinking brats. I really didn't expect that the two of you actually have dragon veins in your bodies, and that they're so strong. But unfortunately, your strength is too weak. So leave the dragon vein to me. Shi Wushang's eyes surged with fanaticism as he roared insolently. What he was thinking was that as long as he obtained Nie Tian and Lin Yi's dragon veins, he would become a peak Heavenly Emperor and even be comparable to the 9 emperors. How could he not be excited? The heavens are kind to me, Shi Wushang, to actually give me 2 dragon veins. Ha ha ha! Shi Wushang was almost crazy with excitement at this time. He was in great joy. Nie Tian and Lin Yi looked at Shi Wushang and sneered at the same time. This guy is quite ambitious. He actually wants to possess the supreme dual veins. But the problem is, does he have this strength? Nie Tian and Lin Yi's eyes darkened at the same time. Then, the dragon chi behind them instantly became violet. Behind them, the scarlet 5-sun dragon chi and the purple-gold 9-star dragon chi actually slowly fused, gradually turning into a scarlet-gold color. As the 5-sun dragon chi and the 9-star dragon chi fused, a vast and mighty power started surging and spreading. Terrifying dragon chi filled the surrounding space. The surrounding people seemed to feel the real aura of a divine dragon. Nietian felt the dragon vein in his body revolve crazily, almost becoming violent, causing his body to tremble unceasingly. Beside him, Lin Yi was the same. His expression was filled with great excitement, almost going crazy. The 9-star dragon vein and the 5-sun dragon vein were known as the supreme dual veins. It was hard to imagine what kind of terrifying power would erupt after fusing. At this time, Shi Wushang finally sensed that something was wrong. His gaze involuntarily trembled, and a hint of unconcealable fear flashed in his eyes. The crowd's gazes also became sluggish. They looked at Nietian and Lin Yi in astonishment. At this time, most people started to believe that the two of them could really fight Shi Wushang if they joined forces. Shi Wushang didn't dare to delay any longer. He raised his silver wolf's hand, and a strange silver power appeared, surging in his palm. Brat died. A cold light flashed in Shi Wushang's eyes. He slapped out with his palm, and the silver power directly exploded in the air, condensing into a sharp silver claw. It was so sharp that it seemed to be able to tear the void apart. It whistled out and fiercely pounced towards Nietian and Lin Yi. At this time, the 9-star dragon vein and the 5-sun dragon vein had completely fused together. The reddish-gold dragon, chi surging in the space, instantly condensed, and a giant reddish-gold dragon appeared. It was actually a super dragon that was more than 2,000 meters long. The moment the giant reddish-gold dragon appeared, it roared angrily at the sky. The dragon's roar shook the heavens and the earth, and the weather changed color. At this moment, everyone felt a surge of mighty power rush over. Their expressions immediately became dull and stiff, and even their breathing seemed to stop. The giant reddish-gold dragon's body was flowing with reddish-gold light. Although its body wasn't a physical body, it was even more shocking than a physical body. Shi Wushang looked at the giant reddish-gold dragon and felt the vast pressure. His eyes couldn't help but tremble violently. Chapter 1140. What a terrifying power! Nietian couldn't help but be shocked when he saw the giant dragon shatter the silver wolf's attack with a single claw strike. The power of the giant dragon formed after the fusion of the dual meridians had exceeded Nietian's expectations. Lin Yi's eyes also darkened. He was equally surprised. At this moment, both of them were determined to fuse the dual meridians. How is this possible? Someone in the crowd exclaimed. The giant dragon could actually break Shi Wushang's attack so easily. It was truly terrifying. The 3 siblings of the Bai family were all stunned in the spirit boat. Bai Xiaofei was right. The power of the fusion of the dual meridians was indeed shocking. It was unimaginably powerful. Kill him for me. At this moment, a cold light flashed in Lin Yi's eyes. He wanted to control the giant dragon, but he discovered the existence of another force controlling it. He couldn't help but look at Nietian with a cold expression. The giant dragon was formed from the fusion of the dual meridians. Nietian and Lin Yi both had the ability to control it, so they had to work together if they wanted the giant dragon to move freely. When Shi Wushang saw the golden dragon stiffening in midair and the strange expressions on Nietian and Lin Yi's faces, he immediately understood what was going on. His lips curled into a cold smile, and his aura soared. A giant silver wolf appeared behind him. It was 1,000 meters long, and its silver fur released a white light. Its entire body was covered in a layer of silver energy. Giant spirit true body. When the crowd saw the giant silver wolf behind Shi Wushang, their eyes trembled, and they revealed great fear. Shi Wushang was going all out. He had actually released the giant spirit true body. The crowd's eyes trembled violently. They were all wondering if Shi Wushang's giant spirit true body could fight against the giant dragon. Brat, I'll tear you apart. Shi Wushang's face was as gloomy as water, and his lips curled into a cold, murderous smile. The giant silver wolf howled and turned into a silver bolt of lightning, directly pouncing toward the giant dragon. Swish! The silver dragon was extremely fast. like a ball of silver flames. Its sharp silver claws aimed at the head of the crimson gold dragon and slashed down. Tian and Lin Yi were stunned at the same time. Immediately after, the crimson gold dragon's body rolled, its huge dragon claws raised, and waves of dragon might were released. The surrounding space directly turned into a sea of crimson gold flames. Boom! In the next moment, the giant silver wolf and the crimson golden dragon collided head-on. A deafening sound erupted in the void, and the space seemed to be torn apart. In the void, two huge beasts, one gold and one silver, actually began a terrifying melee. One was formed from dragon chi, while the other was formed from flesh and blood. The crowd stared at the two gigantic beasts in the sky. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. A battle of this level was too terrifying. It shook the heavens and the earth, causing fear to well up in the hearts of the spectators. At the same time, they could feel their blood boiling. Bang! 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 The crimson gold dragon and the silver wolf fought fiercely in the void. Terrifying power wreaked havoc in the space, causing muffled sounds to erupt. Swoosh! The sharp claws of the silver wolf were like swords. With a loud crash, it actually left a terrifying 100-meter-long gash on the body of the crimson gold dragon. The crimson gold dragon chi escaped and surged in the space. Bang! At the same time, the crimson gold dragon's claws also slammed down, directly bombarding the belly of the silver wolf. A shrill wolf howl resounded. Shi Wuxiang felt a sharp pain that struck his whole body. His body trembled, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this scene, Tian and Lin Yi roared at the same time, their eyes flashing with cold, killing intent. Kill! The crimson dragon let out a deafening roar. Its huge dragon head suddenly stretched out, and its body rolled out. A huge pressure was released like a landslide and a tsunami. Its two dragon horns were like sharp blades as they blasted towards the silver wolf. Puff! The dragon horns were like swords. With the sound of flesh being torn, they deeply pierced into the back of the silver wolf. A whoop! Immediately, a shrill and miserable howl sounded. The silver wolf gave off a heart-wrenching scream. Immediately, blood rained down, dyeing a stretch of the sky red. The space was filled with the smell of blood. The most fatal blow directly made the silver wolf fall into a state of near death. Sect Master Shi is going to lose. The extremely tragic scene made everyone's gazes tremble one after another, their eyes horrified to the extreme. Unable to imagine that a second-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist and a third-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist joining hands could actually kill an eighth-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist. This scene was too shocking. Arg! At virtually the same time, Shi Wuxiang gave off an ear-piercing wail, his entire body dripping with blood, his entire face becoming hideous. He never dreamed that he would actually die at the hands of Tian and Lin Yi, two ants that he normally could not even be bothered to take a look at could actually threaten his life. This made him unable to believe it. At this time, as long as the crimson gold dragon exerted a little force, the dragon horn would directly pierce through the silver wolf's body, and Shi Wuxiang would die without a doubt. But right at this instant, that crack on the crimson gold dragon's body suddenly expanded. Dragon chi escaped frenziedly. The silver wolf's body immediately became dim, and was actually on the verge of shattering. Amen? Tian and Lin Yi were stunned at the same time. Although they wanted to maintain the silver wolf's body, they were already unable to do so. The crimson gold dragon directly turned into dragon chi and dissipated under the watch of countless gazes. The silver wolf broke free of control and directly disappeared, being recalled back by Shi Wuxiang. What's going on? The crowd's gazes were dull, completely not knowing what happened. The crimson gold dragon only suffered a very minor injury. How did it expand infinitely and directly dissipate? Tian and Lin Yi exchanged a glance, and both of them seemed to realize something. The fusion of their two meridians was unstable to begin with. After all, it belonged to the power of two martial bodies. Although the 9-star dragon Shi and the 5-yang dragon Shi seemed to have completely fused together to the point of becoming one, they were repelling each other internally. After the crimson gold dragon was injured, the repelling between the two dragon Shi expanded. In the end, it could not maintain the dragon's body and completely collapsed. It seems that only by allowing the two great dragon veins to exist in the same martial body can they be completely fused and unleash the true power of the sovereign dual meridians. Nietian's gaze sank slightly as he thought to himself. He glanced at Lin Yi. The latter's eyes were blazing. They should have the same thoughts. Although the 9-star dragon vein and the 5-yang dragon vein had only fused for a short period of time, Nietian and Lin Yi both felt the terror of the fusion. There was a great disparity in strength between the two of them and Shi Wushang, yet they could use the fusion of dual meridians to heavily injure him and even almost kill him. The power of the fusion of dual meridians could be imagined. At this moment, the two of them were determined to snatch the other's dragon vein. However, they were now facing a very serious situation. The fusion of the dual meridians had been broken, and Shi Wushang was not dead. How were they going to deal with it? The fusion of the dual meridians had almost killed Shi Wushang, but at the last moment, it had failed. At this moment, Shi Wushang stood in the void. The blood on his body had already disappeared, and the wound on his back had instantly healed. Although his aura was a little weaker, it was still very powerful. Chapter 1141. Shi Wushang stared coldly at Nietian and Lin Yi, his eyes burning with desire. He originally thought that Nietian's and Lin Yi's dragon veins were very terrifying. As long as he obtained one, it could let him advance to 9th level Heavenly Emperor, even reaching peak Heaven Realm strength. But now, seeing that the two people's dragon veins could actually fuse and erupt with such terrifying power, even stronger than his 8th level Heavenly Emperor Giant Spirit True Body, this made him unwittingly even more fervent. Shi Wushang even felt that if he obtained their dragon veins and fused them into his body, not only could he reach peak Heavenly Emperor strength, but he might even be able to break through to the legendary deity realm. Divine Realm. This was the realm that all martial artists yearned for. As long as one reached the deity realm, one would be able to live as long as the heavens and the earth, competing for glory with the sun and moon. Who wouldn't yearn for it? Thinking of this, Shi Wushang's eyes became misty. He seemed to have seen himself standing at the peak. The Heaven Realm's 9 emperors, the 5 great sword Daos, all of them were prostrating at his feet, worshipping him. This kind of feeling was simply incomparably fanatical. Dragon's vein, dragon's vein. I must obtain both of your dragon's veins. A crazed voice rang out in Shi Wushang's mind, making him look like he had gone insane. This! The crowd gradually calmed down at this moment. They looked at Shi Wushang, who seemed to have gone mad, and could not help but be confused. They did not know why Shi Wushang was suddenly in such a state. Nietian and Lin Yi frowned slightly. Of course, they knew what Shi Wushang was thinking. Although Shi Wushang was injured, he still had the strength of an 8th level Heavenly Emperor. As the saying goes, a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. Even if he was weak, he was not someone that Nietian and Lin Yi could contend with. The dragon energy in Nietian and Lin Yi's bodies had already been used up. It was impossible for them to merge their dual meridians anymore. At this moment, they were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. You two stinking brats, die obediently. After a long while, Shi Wushang finally calmed down a little. His eyes regained their coldness, and his whole body surged with terrifying killing intent. He raised his arm and used the hand of the silver wolf. A silver vortex appeared on his palm, and he slapped it out. Boom! The silver vortex suddenly expanded in the air, and a terrifying power bloomed, condensing into a sharp silver claw. The sharp aura seemed to be able to tear everything apart. Watch out! When Shui Yong saw this scene, he couldn't help but cry out in alarm, and his heart was in his throat. Everyone's eyes trembled, and a strange joy appeared in their eyes. They seemed to have seen the tragic scene of Nietian and Lin being torn to pieces. Many thanks. Nye Tian stood motionless in the face of Shi Wushang's fatal attack. Lin Yi, on the other hand, wanted to escape. Actually, given Nye Tian's abilities, as long as he used the meteor wings, he could completely avoid Shi Wushang's attack. However, he stood there like a block of wood, not moving at all. "What is he doing?" the crowd exclaimed. Lin Yi retreated, but Nye Tian didn't move. Wasn't he courting death? However, in the next moment, a strange scene appeared. Bang! The silver claw seemed to have bombarded something 100 meters away from Nye Tian. It actually stopped abruptly, and after a muffled sound, it directly shattered. "What's going on?" The crowd's eyes darkened, and they looked surprised, not knowing what happened. "Worship." Shi Wushang's gaze involuntarily darkened when his move was blocked, and he immediately shouted a name. His voice had just faded when the void suddenly shook. A spirit warship appeared. It was the Bai family's 3 siblings' White Cloud spirit ship. The White Cloud spirit ship was protected by a rank 8 spirit formation. Even ordinary 9th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artists would find it very hard to break it. Shi Wushang only had the strength of an 8th-level Heavenly Emperor, so it was naturally impossible for him to break the spirit ship's defense. At this time, the crowd immediately understood why Nye Tian didn't move at all. It turned out that he knew someone wanted to save him. Nye Tian had long known that Bai Yunfei would move the spirit ship over, so he naturally didn't panic. His "many thanks" earlier was said to the Bai family's 3 siblings. "This is..." Shi Wushang looked at the spirit ship in front of him, and his face darkened. This was actually something that was a combination of a spirit ship and a warship. In the next instant, Shi Wushang immediately reacted and asked in a deep voice, "You're from the Bai family?" His expression was extremely gloomy. Nye Tian and Lin Yi already didn't have the strength to fight back. They were just about to obtain the 2 dragon veins, but a spirit ship suddenly appeared at this time. How could he not be angry? Junior Bai Yunfei greets Sect Master Shi. Bai Yunfei bowed slightly and said in a clear voice, appearing extremely respectful. Although Shi Wushang wasn't much, he was a famous figure in the Dongchuan Divine Territory, and he was also a senior. Bai Yunfei was very polite to him. "Young Master Yunfei." Hearing Bai Yunfei's words, the crowd couldn't help but exclaim. Their hearts trembled. They truly didn't expect that one of the 4 young masters, young Master Yunfei, would also come to the Xianhuang mountain range. Of the 4 young masters, young Master Godslayer and young Master Yunfei were both here. This was an extremely rare scene. However, young Master Godslayer was already completely ignored at this time. No one paid attention to him anymore. "Nephew Bai." Shi Wushang's eyes suddenly darkened, and he called out in a strange voice, "This is a matter between this sect master and the 2 of them. It's not very appropriate for you to interfere." Shi Wushang obviously knew who Bai Yunfei was. Bai Yunfei was the grandson of the Craftsman Guild's president, Bai Mingbo. His status was extremely high, and even as the sect master of the Heaven Murder Sect, he didn't dare to make a move against Bai Yunfei. Sect Master Shi. Bai Yunfei smiled and actually opened the spirit ship. He stepped out and said, "Young Master Nye Tian is this junior's friend. There is no grudge between you and him. Can you give this junior some face and stop here?" "Stop?" Shi Wushang smiled coldly, and a cold light flashed through his eyes. "He almost killed this sect master just now, and you want me to stop? Do you think that's possible?" At this moment, Nye Tian suddenly sensed that something was wrong and cried out, "Danger!" But it was still too late. Shi Wushang suddenly made a move and grabbed Bai Yunfei, restraining him. The powerful pressure made Bai Yunfei's face turn red, and he couldn't speak. "Big brother!" Bai Xiaofei and Bai Xiaoye screamed when they saw this. The 2 had never imagined that Shi Wushang would actually dare to attack Bai Yunfei, and even use a sneak attack. The Heaven Murder Sect's sect master actually sneak attacked a junior. Shi Wushang had lost all his face. At this moment, Shi Wushang was already desperate, for the sake of obtaining the ley line. So what if he offended Bai Mingbo? As long as he didn't kill Bai Yunfei, Bai Mingbo wouldn't dare to do anything to him. But as long as he obtained the ley line and his strength increased, Would he still be afraid of by Mingbo? After fusing with the twin dragon veins, Shi Wuxiang was confident that he could move unhindered in the heaven realm and be unrivaled. Nie Tian had already seen Shi Wuxiang make a move in the projection, but he was still a step too late, and Shi Wuxiang restrained by Yunfei. This is bad. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed, and he felt that things were bad. Ha ha ha. It's so lively here. This daddy will also join in the fun. At this moment, a tyrannical laughter rang out in the void, and a vast aura rushed over. Oh! Hearing this voice, Nie Tian's eyes trembled, and his face lit up with joy. A name appeared in his mind. Long Out Yin. Chapter 1142. Nie Tian was very familiar with the domineering voice that suddenly rang out in the void. It was Long Out Yin. What a domineering aura! As the voice rang out, everyone felt an oppressive aura rushing towards them. It caused their hearts to tremble and their bodies to tremble slightly. In an instant, everyone reacted. The person who had come was an even more terrifying expert than Shi Wuxiang. Ha ha! Looks like I've come at the right time. I've made it to the most exciting moment of the show. The voice rang out again. A figure flashed by like a ghost, and a black claw appeared in the sky to grab Godslayer. Before anyone could react, a silhouette appeared in the sky and stretched out an arm. It was a sinister skeletal arm that firmly grasped the Godslayer young master. Godslayer didn't react at all. His body floated in the air, but the shadow of a skeletal arm was pressing down on him. He couldn't move, couldn't even speak, and could only look at Shi Wuxiang in terror. Tears were about to fall from his eyes. As long as the skeletal arm exerted a bit of force, Godslayer would definitely die on the spot. Godslayer! Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Shi Wuxiang didn't even have time to react. By the time he did, it was already too late. Who is this person? That skeletal arm of his is so powerful. Could it be the legendary Octotera, Ghostbone? Everyone was stunned. Their eyes focused on the newcomer, and their eyes flickered with light as they tried to guess who it was. The figure flickered and appeared next to Nie Tian. He smiled. Big brother, I'm not late, am I? If only I'd come a bit earlier. Nie Tian smiled. If Long Out Yin had come a bit earlier, Bai Yunfei wouldn't have fallen into Shi Wuxiang's hands. But it wasn't too late now. Long Out Yin also had a hostage, and it was someone very important to Shi Wuxiang, his son, Godslayer. Big brother? When the crowd heard how Long Out Yin addressed Nie Tian and saw how respectful he was to the latter, their eyes trembled violently, and their faces were filled with disbelief. They were all trying to guess who Nie Tian was and why Long Out Yin would call him Big Brother. You are Long Out Yin. Right at this moment, Shi Wuxiang, who had been staring fixedly at Long Out Yin, finally recognized him. He couldn't help but cry out in alarm. His eyes suddenly trembled, and he couldn't help but reveal a terrified expression. He never thought that the Heaven Realm's #1 madman, Long Out Yin, who had disappeared for over 100 years, would actually appear here. Long Out Yin. Hearing this name, everyone was stunned. They looked at Long Out Yin in shock, and their eyes were filled with terror. The name Long Out Yin had disappeared for over 100 years, but because of his great fame, many people hadn't forgotten about him. He had gradually become a legendary figure. Now that this legendary figure had suddenly appeared, how could everyone not be shocked? Shi Wuxiang, long time no see. Long Out Yin smiled and glanced at Shi Wuxiang with a cold gaze. His eyes were filled with disdain. You, the headmaster of the Heaven Murder Sect, are becoming more and more of a scum. You actually ambushed a child. How shameless. Even I feel ashamed for you. Long Out Yin, you... Shi Wuxiang's face darkened. His expression seemed to be saying, didn't you ambush Godslayer as well? Indeed, Long Out Yin had also ambushed Godslayer, but this was just giving him a taste of his own medicine. Long Out Yin, release my son at once, or I'll kill Bai Yunfei. Shi Wuxiang knew that Long Out Yin was crazy, so he was afraid that something would happen to his son. Kill your mother. Who knew that Long Out Yin would laugh wildly as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. He looked at Shi Wuxiang as if he was looking at an idiot and sneered. Shi Wuxiang, Did Emperor Chenin kick your head? You're threatening me with the grandson of a white iron rooster. Do you think I care? Kill him if you want. Kill him as you please. Long Ao Yin suddenly pointed at by Xiao Fei and by Xia. There are two more over there. If you're not satisfied, then kill them as well. I don't care at all. You. Shi Wushang's face immediately turned as yellow as feces. There was no need to mention how ugly he was. He had lost his head in desperation. He was using Bai Yunfei's life to threaten Long Ao Yin. And yet Tian shook his head slightly. He obviously knew that the white rooster Long Ao Yin was talking about was Bai Mingbo. It seemed that Long Ao Yin had once asked Bai Mingbo for a grade 9 emperor armament, but the latter didn't give it to him. Thus, Long Ao Yin gave the latter the nickname of a stingy rooster. Shi Wushang, you have to think this through. I heard that the white rooster is stingy and is famous for being protective of his children. If you kill his precious grandson, you have to be prepared for the worst. Who knows, he might flatten your heaven murder sect with a single order. Long Ao Yin chuckled. He obviously knew that Niet Tian wanted to say Bai Yunfei. He was just playing with Shi Wushang. Gulp. Shi Wushang gulped when he heard Long Ao Yin's words. Bai Mingbo was indeed a bit stingy. If he really killed Bai Yunfei, it would definitely be a huge hole in the sect. Although the Heaven Murder sect was a first-rate power in the Eastern Divine region, it was still far from being comparable to the Craftsman's Guild. Long Ao Yin, what do you want? Shi Wushang wasn't too stupid. He could tell that Long Ao Yin had no intention of killing young Master God Slayer, so he calmed down and asked, "How about this?" Long Ao Yin chuckled. "I'm acquainted with the White Rooster, so I'll be kind and save that by Brat. You release him first, and I'll release him later. Release him together." Shi Wushang's eyes flickered, and he frowned. Long Ao Yin naturally knew what Shi Wushang was thinking. He laughed coldly. "Shi Wushang, do you think I'm as shameless as you? I'm Long Ao Yin, someone who could destroy a mountain with a spit. Would I act shamelessly with you?" Shi Wushang was startled. He understood Long Ao Yin. Although the latter was extremely arrogant, he was also very trustworthy. He probably wouldn't act shamelessly. "Fine, I'll release him." Shi Wushang growled. He then looked at Bai Yunfei and said, "Nephew Bai, I was only joking with you. I hope you don't mind." With that, Shi Wushang's aura dissipated. Bai Yunfei's figure flashed, and he arrived at Long Ao Yin's side. Although he looked a bit frightened, he still maintained his composure. Bai Yunfei didn't think that a dignified headmaster like Shi Wushang, a famous powerhouse in the Eastern Divine region, would actually sneak attack him. It was truly despicable. "Bai Brat, are you all right?" Long Ao Yin glanced at Bai Yunfei. After confirming that the latter was fine, he looked coldly at Shi Wushang and said with disdain, "Shi Wushang, your little joke is really good. I'll tell the white iron rooster about this in the future and have the white-haired old man play a little joke with you too." Long Ao Yin, you. Shi Wushang's face darkened. He was so angry that he couldn't say anything. Chapter 1143. Shi Wushang forced himself to calm down and not think too much. Looking at Long Ao Yin, he roared solemnly, "Long Ao Yin, release him." He already perceived that Long Ao Yin's strength was merely 8th level Heavenly Emperor. If he did not have a hostage in his hands, he was not afraid of the other party either. One had to know, he, Shi Wushang, was someone who possessed the Silver Wolf Hand. His strength was much stronger than ordinary 8th level Heavenly Emperor martial artists. "Release, then release. What are you shouting for?" Long Ao Yin chuckled and directly threw God Slayer Young Master out, laughing wildly as he said, "Your son of a B***, I'll return it to you." Shi Wushang's figure moved, catching God Slayer Young Master. Seeing the latter's ashen face, he was clearly greatly alarmed and said nervously, "God Slayer, are you all right?" God Slayer Young Master stood where he was, still in a state of shock. He only reacted after a long time and shook his head blankly, indicating that he was fine. Actually, Long Ao Yin did not do anything to God Slayer Young Master at all. It was just that the latter was too cowardly and was frightened. This was the difference between Long Ao Yin and God Slayer Young Master. The former was arrogant facing anyone, while the latter only dared to be insolent in front of people weaker than him. At this time, The crowd's gazes shifted between Long Outyin and Shi Wushang, seemingly anticipating a great battle between the two. One was the Heaven Murder Sect's sect master. The other was the Heaven Realm's #1 madman. Both had 8th-level Heavenly Emperor strength, and even possessed 4 great, profound arms. If these two people fought, it would definitely be very exciting. At this time, Lin looked at Nie Tian from far away. He did not expect that the latter actually knew a powerhouse like Long Outyin. Furthermore, Long Outyin looked very respectful toward Nie Tian. This made Lin very surprised. "Big brother, should we kill Shi Wushang?" Long Outyin's cold eyes swept across Shi Wushang and actually asked directly. It was as if in his eyes, Shi Wushang was not worth mentioning at all and could be casually insta-killed. Nie Tian smiled faintly. He could tell that Shi Wushang's strength was below Long Outyin's. Now that he was injured, it was even more impossible for him to be a match for Long Outyin. Shaking his head, he chuckled and said, "Proud heaven, you brought a tail back, didn't you know?" As he spoke, Nie Tian gazed into the void. Although there was no one there, he had long sensed that a hidden aura was hiding there. Since this person followed Long Outyin here, there was an 80 to 90% chance that he was someone from Azura's Gate. Haha, of course I know. Long Outyin didn't find it strange. Instead, he laughed arrogantly and stared at the void. He shouted, "Old fart, you've been following me for a long time. It's time to come out." Long Outyin's eyes were filled with coldness as he transmitted his voice to Nie Tian. "Big brother, this old fart has been following me ever since I left Liangwu City. He didn't make a move, and neither did I. After I sent the 2 sisters-in-law to Mao Xianglong's place, I directly rushed over. Who knew that this old fart still followed me? In order to hurry on my way, I ignored him. I didn't expect that he actually followed to the Xianhuang mountain range." Talking up to here, Long Outyin suddenly realized something and cried out strangely, saying, "F***CK me. He followed me in order to find you, big brother." All the way until this time, Long Outyin abruptly reacted. The reason why the person following him did not make a move all along was in order to make use of him, to find Nie Tian. Nie Tian laughed speechlessly. Long Outyin was not considered too foolish and finally reacted. Actually, this cannot be blamed on him either. He must have wanted to rendezvous with Nie Tian as soon as possible, so he did not think so much. But it was fine too. Nie Tian already perceived that the strength of the person in the dark was 8th-level Heavenly Emperor. He should not be Long Outyin's match. Long Outyin possessed the 8 desolate ghost bone and continuously absorbed the power of the Yin Corpse curse mark. He might advance to 9th-level Heavenly Emperor at any time. The crowd looked at Nie Tian and Long Outyin with stunned faces, not knowing who the two people were talking to. "Long Outyin, turns out that you've always known that I've been following you." Right at this time, a voice sounded out in the void. It was very low and hoarse, exuding a gloomy and cold sense of oppression. Following that, the void swayed slightly. A gray-clothed figure appeared. It was a wizened old man, his expression cold, exuding a full chill. His pair of eyes were like that of a venomous wolf, merciless and murderous. What cold aura! The moment this figure appeared, everyone felt a bone-chilling, killing intent. It was as if the person in front of them was a piece of 10,000-year-old profound ice. The surrounding space was instantly frozen, causing everyone to feel as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. What a merciless killing intent. What the others felt was iciness, but what Nie Tian felt was ruthlessness. That person's eyes were very terrifying, cold, and murderous, not containing any human emotion. Assassin. In an instant, Nie Tian confirmed this person's identity. Only the most extreme assassin could have such cold eyes. "You are." And right at this time, City Lord Liangwu Ju Tianhua saw that person's face clearly. His gaze involuntarily trembled, and he cried out in shock. But the following words were forcefully swallowed back down. Nie Tian noticed Ju Tianhua's reaction, and his gaze involuntarily turned intent. Could it be that the latter knew the old man in front of him? Heartless, after so many years, Turns out that you joined the Azurist sect. Long Ao Yin stared at that person for a long time and suddenly recognized the other party's identity. His eyes immediately flickered with ice-cold, killing intent. Heartless was the name of the newcomer, and this name had already disappeared for a long time. Most people had already forgotten. Heartless, he wouldn't be that person from the Jew family, right? The crowd was stunned, then immediately thought of something. Over 100 years ago, a person with extremely strong martial Dao talent once appeared in the Jew family. It was Heartless. With his own strength, Heartless made the Jew family into a first-rate force in the East River celestial territory within a few decades. But then he suddenly disappeared, and there was no news of him after that. From then on, the Jew family also declined, and today it became a second-rate force. Who would have thought that Heartless, who had disappeared for 100 years, would actually appear again? This time, the situation became interesting. First, there was Shi Wushang, then there was Long Ao Yin, and now there was Heartless. Although these three people could not be considered peak experts in the East River Celestial Territory, they were definitely top experts. The three people met, not knowing what would happen next. Old Ancestor. At this time, Zhu Tianhua could no longer control himself, and with a wail, he knelt in front of Heartless. Get up. Heartless lightly waved his hand, his eyes still as cold as before. Even when he saw the Jew family's descendant, he still did not reveal the slightest bit of emotion. At this time, Shi Wushang's face stiffened. Obviously, he was quite frightened. He was very afraid that if Long Ao Yin and Heartless joined forces to kill him, he would definitely not be able to withstand a single move. But how could he know that Long Ao Yin was someone by Nie Tian's side, and Heartless was the Jew family's old ancestor, as well as an Azura sect assassin? How could these two people join forces? Long Ao Yin, you know why I'm here, and you also know who the person behind me is, so you'd better not interfere. However, Heartless did not care about Shi Wushang at all. Instead, he looked at Long Ao Yin and spoke in a cold tone. Then his stern gaze locked on Nie Tian, and he said, I'm here to take your life. Chapter 1144. You want to kill me? Nie Tian frowned when he felt the murderous intent. There was no fear in his eyes, only a hint of playfulness. Even though Heartless didn't say it out loud, he was certain that Emperor Chenin was the one who ordered the Shura Gate to attack him. Luo Chanhun, I didn't expect you to be in cahoots with the Shura Gate. The corner of Nie Tian's mouth twitched as he thought helplessly. In order to kill him, Luo Chanhun invited the Shura Gate to do it. He was truly unscrupulous. However, Nie Tian was puzzled. Why didn't Luo Chanhun do it himself? Could it be that he was afraid of something? He couldn't figure it out at the moment, so he didn't think too much about it. Nie Tian, as long as he doesn't interfere, you're dead. Heartless stared at Huang Xiaolong with murderous intent. Why the F***CK wouldn't I interfere? However, before Heartless could finish his sentence, Long Ao Yin's arrogant voice rang in the air. With a face full of disdain, he roared, Did your Shura Gate people's brains get squeezed by the Shura Gate overlord? Huang Tianfei is an idiot, and you're also an idiot. You kill my brother in front of me, and you don't want me to interfere? Do you think I'm as stupid as you? His arrogant voice rang in the air, and everyone was stunned. Heartless and cold, and Long Ao Yin's arrogance. The two styles were too different, and they were not on the same level. Long Ao Yin, Emperor Chenin spared your life. Do you not know how to cherish it? Heartless stood there, the coldness in his eyes intensified, and his voice was so low that it was suffocating. Long Ao Yin sneered. Heartless was one of the people who chased after him, so he knew that Illusion Emperor Bailey Fengshun had pleaded on his behalf to Emperor Chenin. My life is stinky and hard. There's no need to cherish it. Long Ao Yin laughed coldly in a loud voice and said, But you old bastard, always giving Luo Chunhun your life. Who knows when he will kill you? Killing meritorious officials is old bastard Luo's favorite. Long Ao Yin, you're courting death. Heartless body trembled. He really couldn't stand Long Ao Yin's insolence. His ice-cold face finally revealed a look of anger. Nie Tian couldn't help but shake his head and smile bitterly. No matter how calm a person was, they would fly into a rage when they met Long Out Yin. I like to court death. If you have the guts, then come at me. Long Out Yin chuckled. He did not put Heartless in his eyes at all. Forget about a mere Heartless. Even if Emperor Dainite and the Azura Gate Patriarch were here, they wouldn't be able to stop Long Out Yin's insolence. Long Out Yin, you forced my hand. Heartless anger burned in his heart, and he could no longer control himself. Killing intent erupted from his body, and a terrifying aura spread out. A cold aura of death filled the surrounding 10,000 meters. Even those in the distance could feel the suffocating, killing intent. This was the terror of an assassin, calm as water, explosive like fire. Yet Tion's eyes narrowed, and he prepared to leave at any time. His strength was too weak, and staying by Long Out Yin's side would only be a burden. Ancestor. At this time, a voice suddenly sounded, and a figure appeared in front of Heartless. Lin Yi. Seeing that it was Lin Yi, Nye Tian was startled. He didn't expect Lin Yi to appear at this time. Who are you? Heartless' cold eyes swept over Lin Yi, and he revealed a wisp of surprise as he spoke in a deep voice. Ancestor, his name is Lin Yi, the Zhu family's son-in-law. Zhu Tianhua's figure also appeared, bowing. Heartless' eyes darkened, and he glanced at Lin Yi again, saying, "You're very good, indeed qualified to be the Zhu family's son-in-law." After saying that, Heartless looked at Long Out Yin again. He thought that Lin Yi just came to say hello, and everything would be fine after that. However, Lin Yi took a glance at Nye Tian and said, "Patriarch, please calm down. There's something I want to talk to you about. He can't die yet." Huh? Heartless' eyes suddenly turned cold when he heard Lin Yi's words. He said coldly, "Boy, you're a member of the Zhu family. But if you want to plead on his behalf, you'd better forget about it. He must die." Nye Tian was also stunned, not knowing what Lin Yi wanted to do. Of course, he knew that Lin Yi wouldn't plead for him. He must be plotting something. Ancestor, the mysterious mountain range really has a heaven and earth spirit pool. If you want to find it, you need Nye Tian's help, Lin Yi said directly. Heaven and earth spirit pool. Heartless was stunned for a moment, and then he sneered. That's just a legend. It's impossible for the heaven realm to have a heaven and earth spirit pool. Ancestor, this time it's not a legend. Lin Yi's eyes flashed, staring at Heartless, and directly transmitted his voice to the latter. After a moment, Heartless calmed down, and his aura dissipated. His pair of cold eyes looked at Nye Tian, and there seemed to be some doubt. If we want to enter the Gate of the Void, we need his help? Yes. Lin Yi nodded and said, "The space-time pressure of the Gate of the Void is very strong, comparable to a spatial storm. If we want to get close to the Gate of the Void, we must find a way to weaken the space-time pressure. As long as I join forces with him, we can greatly weaken the space-time pressure of the Gate of the Void, and then we can enter the Gate of the Void." Nye Tian listened to Lin Yi's words, and his eyes gradually became complicated. His brain was working fast, and then his face changed. His eyes revealed a huge, blazing light, and he suddenly understood Lin Yi's meaning. Use Dragon Chi. Almost at the same time, the Sword Elder's voice also sounded, and he was very happy. He said excitedly, "How could I forget? Dragon Chi can weaken the space-time stability." Nye Tian and the Sword Elder understood at the same time. Lin Yi wanted to use Dragon Chi to weaken the space-time pressure of the Gate of the Void. Dragon Chi could weaken the space-time stability, and naturally, it could weaken the space-time pressure. Lin Yi should have thought of this 3 days ago, so he did not fight with Nye Tian at that time. Lin Yi's Dragon Chi alone was far from enough, but if he added Nye Tian's Dragon Chi, the Dragon Chi after the dual meridian fusion would be enough to weaken the space-time pressure of the Gate of the Void. When Nye Tian and Lin Yi fought, their dual meridians fought, and the two of them directly created a space-time crack. Just now, when the two of them fused their dual meridians, the strength of the Dragon Chi was beyond imagination. Otherwise, they would not have been able to fight against Shi Wuxian. Although the others did not understand Lin Yi's words, they at least heard clearly that there was indeed a heaven and earth spirit pool in mysterious yellow mountain range. Heaven and Earth Spirit Pool. Heartless' gaze flickered, clearly thinking about something. After a moment, he finally opened his mouth and said, "Okay, let's go to the Gate of the Void there first. Nietion's life will be left here for the time being." Although Heartless wanted to kill Nietion very much, the allure of the Heaven and Earth Spirit Pool was too great. If he could really find the Heaven and Earth Spirit Pool, borrowing the power of the Spirit Pool, he could definitely reach peak 9th level Heavenly Emperor. With this kind of strength, he could be on par with the Heaven Realm 9 Emperors and no longer need to be controlled by the Azure Sect Master. Big Brother. Long Outyin was not interested in the Heaven and Earth Spirit Pool or whatever. Instead, he turned his head to glance at Nietion. If the latter made him take action, he would directly kill Heartless, clean and tidy. "Let's go with them." Nietion gave Lenny a glance, the corners of his mouth curling into a hint of a strange smile, preparing to cooperate with the latter temporarily. He also wanted to enter the Gate of the Void. Not only was there the Heaven and Earth Spirit Pool there, but it was also an alternate space. Chapter 1145. Thousands of cultivators gathered in a spacious area in the profound Yellow Mountain Range. As they looked at the chaotic whirlpool in the air, intense fear appeared in their eyes. At the same time, there was also a burning desire in their eyes. "Lenny, is this the Gate to the Void that you're talking about?" Looking at the Gate to the Void, Wuching could feel a strong pressure coming from all directions. He couldn't help but frown and ask in a deep voice. "Yes." Lenny nodded slightly, and a strange smile appeared on his face. "Old Ancestor, the Gate to the Void is a space-time gate. As long as you step into it, you can lead to another world. The space-time of that world is very stable, so there must be a Heaven-Earth spiritual pool there." Linyi's eyes were full of desire, as if he couldn't wait any longer. Wuching's eyes flickered. He could feel the huge space-time pressure. He also knew that since the Xianhuang mountain range could become an oasis in a place like infinite wasteland everlasting, there must be a Yuan Qi vein inside. Thinking about what Lenny said, the Gate to the Void was very likely to have a Heaven-Earth spiritual pool. On the other side, Long Outyin stared at Wuching coldly and suddenly asked Nietion, "Big Brother, is what that kid called Lenny said true?" Nietion nodded and smiled. "It should be true. That old fart Wuching seems to be very interested in the Heaven-Earth spiritual pool. Is the Heaven-Earth spiritual pool very powerful?" Long Outyin asked doubtfully. "Of course it's very powerful." Nietion smiled. "As for how powerful it is, wait until we enter the Gate to the Void and see it with your own eyes." At this time, Lenny came to Nietion's side and smiled. "Nietion, I think you also want to enter the Gate to the Void, right?" "Of course." Nietion responded indifferently. "Just now, we consumed too much dragon chi and need to rest and recover. The space-time pressure of the Gate to the Void is very strong. I'm afraid it will take a long time to weaken it to a suitable level. The dragon chi could weaken the space-time pressure of the Gate to the Void, but it would take time." Nietion estimated that it would take at least a few days for the space-time pressure to weaken to the point where a Heavenly Emperor could withstand it. As for Nietion and Lin Yi, their battle with Shi Wushang had exhausted almost all of their dragon chi. They urgently needed to recover. Lin Yi smiled faintly and said, "We will start in 3 days." Nietion nodded with a smile. He possessed the primal chaos origin coffin, so he would be able to recover completely within half a day. However, Lin Yi would need at least 3 days to recover. However, he was not in a hurry. He could afford to wait for 3 days. Next, Nietion began to recover his strength. The others didn't leave. Everyone already knew that the Heaven and Earth Spirit Pool was behind the Gate to the Void. How could they bear to leave? Shi Wushang and the others didn't leave either. They wanted to wait for the Gate of the Void to weaken before entering. 3 days later, Nietion stood up from his cultivation. He had completely recovered, and the various powers in his body were in peak condition. He took a look. Lin was still in the midst of recovery, but he was not in a hurry. He was currently peak 2nd level Heavenly Emperor and faintly had signs of breaking through to 3rd level Heavenly Emperor. but he lacked the opportunity. Purely cultivating bitterly, he needed at least several months' time before he could break through. These 3 days, apart from recovering his state, he spent the rest of the time comprehending the soul-devouring sword formation. Previously, the reason why he could raise to the initial stage sword profound realm in a short time was because of the comprehension of the soul-devouring sword formation, letting him condense the soul-devouring sword intent, seizing the opportunity to break through to the initial stage sword profound realm. The initial stage sword profound realm was only peeking into the profundities of the profound meaning. It was still unable to utilize the power of the profound meaning of the sword. The increase in strength was not great. When Yetian reached the high-grade sword profound realm, that was the true pinnacle realm of sword Dao. Only then could the power of the sword intent be truly unleashed. Big brother, another powerful being has appeared. Right at this moment, Long Aoyan's voice rang out with a hint of playfulness in it. Yetian was slightly taken aback. Following that, he looked into the distance. Several figures appeared above the void. Among them, a middle-aged man's aura was very powerful, descending from the sky, vast and mighty like the deep sea. 8th level Heavenly Emperor strength. Yetian looked at that middle-aged man, divine sense probing over, and was considerably surprised in his heart. The arrival strength was actually at the 8th level Heavenly Emperor. Looks like this person is also a famous powerhouse in the East River Divine Realm, Yetian thought to himself, a worried look appearing on his face. If the news of the heaven and earth spiritual pool spread, more powerhouses would come to the Xianwang mountain range. That would be very bad. At this time, Yetian noticed again that a handsome youth stood behind that middle-aged man. The aura on his body was also very powerful. He was actually a 5th level Heavenly Emperor. This youth looks to only be in his 20s and actually has 5th level Heavenly Emperor strength. His martial Dao talent is a little terrifying. Yetian looked at that handsome youth, the corners of his mouth twitching a little as he thought to himself. Aoyan, who is this person? Yetian transmitted his voice to Long Aoyan and asked. Big brother, that old one is the Broken Sea sect leader, Duan Huanghai. This young one should be his son, seems to be the leader of some 4 young masters. Long Aoyan answered Yetian. At the same time, he looked at the few figures in the air with a nonchalant look. He had stayed in the East River Divine Realm for so long. Even if he did not go out much, he also knew some things. The Broken Sea sect's reputation in the East River Divine Realm was very great. Like the Heaven Murder sect, they were both first-rate factions. More importantly, the 2 major sects were even brother sections. Because the Heaven Murder sect leader, Shi Wushang, and the Broken Sea sect leader, Duan Huanghai, were fellow apprentices. Junior apprentice brother, you're here. At this time, when Shi Wushang saw Duan Huanghai appear, his tightly furrowed brows immediately smoothed out, and he greeted loudly, as if afraid that others could not hear him. Sect leader Shi. Duan Huanghai descended and directly landed beside Shi Wushang and the others. He did not show the proper respect, nor did he call him senior apprentice brother. Instead, he called him sect leader Shi. He and Shi Wushang were indeed fellow apprentices. However, both of them were sect leaders now. How could he still call him senior apprentice brother? Wouldn't he be suppressed for no reason? Oh, Yetian was slightly stunned, but he immediately understood. Duan Huanghai's appearance here must have been informed by Shi Wushang. Just now, Long Aoyan had already told him about their relationship. It seemed that Shi Wushang felt that he was not strong enough, so he invited a helper. However, looking at Duan Huanghai's reaction, it seemed that he did not think much of Shi Wushang. Shi Wushang had a face full of excitement, while Duan Huanghai had a cold expression. This made the former a little embarrassed. He coughed and said, Sect leader Duan, thank you for coming here. I'm here for the spiritual pool of heaven and earth, Duan Huanghai said coldly as he glanced at Shi Wushang. At this time, everyone understood what was going on, and their gazes toward Shi Wushang were a little strange. Shi Wushang had called Duan Huanghai over because he wanted to use the latter's power to intimidate others. However, the latter's reaction was so cold. He did not take him, his senior apprentice brother, seriously at all. Chapter 1146. Duan Hai just arrived and directly said that he came for the Heaven and Earth Spirit Pool, as if the moment he arrived, the Heaven and Earth Spirit Pool would belong to him. This person being so arrogant, Nie Tian was naturally displeased. Amen. When Duan Hai heard Nie Tian's words, his gaze involuntarily turned dark, his eyes trembling slightly, a sharp cold light flickering, and actually released a hint of killing intent. He did not expect that a young martial artist with only second-level Heavenly Emperor strength also dared to casually evaluate him. Really a goddamn idiot. Right at this moment, Long Outyin, who was beside Nie Tian, also opened his mouth. He was even more arrogant as he directly said, "What bullsh asterisk T heaven killing sect and broken sea sect? In my eyes, they're all trash. Even if the two sect masters were to fight together, they wouldn't be able to withstand one punch from me." Long Outyin's pair of cold eyes revealed full contempt, looking straight at Shi Wushang and Duan Hai with a domineering and ferocious look. Furthermore, he did not avoid anyone at all, saying it for everyone to hear. When the insolent words fell, the scene immediately fell into a dead silence. Everyone looked at Long Outyin dumbfoundedly. The latter was indeed worthy of being the #1 lunatic. These words were truly insolent. Amen. Duan Hai was taken aback once more. When he sensed Long Outyin's strength and then saw Long Outyin's appearance, he seemed to have thought of something, his eyes actually hesitating. Arrogant person, what high-sounding sentiments. Just as Duan Hai was hesitating, a furious voice sounded out. It was actually emitted by the handsome youth behind him. Duanli. Bai Yunfei could not help exclaiming when he saw the handsome youth's face clearly. This person was none other than precisely the head of the Dongchuan region's 4 great young masters. Young Master Duanli. Duanli was the youngest among the 4 great young masters, but his strength was the strongest. He was the only 5th-level Heavenly Emperor powerhouse among the 4. The other 3 were all 4th-level Heavenly Emperor strength. At this moment, Duanli's face darkened as he let out a furious roar. His body moved immediately as he slapped out with his palm. A tremendous amount of power burst forth, causing a gigantic water screen to appear in the air. It was as though the entire space had frozen up as it crashed down towards Long Outyin like a horrifying tsunami. Little bastard, you're courting death. How could Long Outyin tolerate a junior attacking him? With a roar, he punched out. The void suddenly sank, and a huge fist shadow whistled out, shattering the water curtain in the sky. Ark! A shrill scream sounded out. Young Master Duanli was directly sent flying out. Leah! Duan Hai's reaction was extremely swift. His figure flashed to catch Duanli, and he had an extremely anxious expression while his divine sense swiftly swept past Duanli. After he confirmed that Duanli was fine, he heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Don't worry, he won't die. Long Outyin's face was full of contempt as he said, I, Long Outyin, am not low enough to kill a junior. Young Master Duan Li was indeed very strong. Unfortunately, his opponent was Long Outyin. With Long Outyin's strength, that punch earlier was enough to kill young Master Duanli on the spot. However, he would not do so. Killing a junior just like that was not his style. Nie Tian could also see that Long Outyin had held back too much in that punch earlier. As long as the latter used a little more strength, young Master Duan Li would be crippled even if he did not die. You are Long Outyin. Duan Hai only reacted at this moment. He exclaimed and looked at Long Outyin with a face full of shock. No wonder he felt that the person in front of him was a little familiar, but he could not recall who it was. It turned out that it was Long Outyin who had disappeared for 100 years. Long Outyin's current appearance had changed compared to 100 years ago. He was much thinner and looked a little older. It was not strange that Duan Hai could not recognize him. If Duan Hai knew that Long Outyin was here, he would not have spoken so arrogantly. Brother Long, my son was reckless and offended you. Please forgive him. Duan Huanghai calmed down. His eyes flickered and he said very carefully. Everyone was taken aback. They did not expect that Duan Huanghai, as the master of the sect, would actually take the initiative to apologize to Long Out Yin. The corners of Nie Tian's mouth smiled slightly. This Duan Huanghai was still considered sensible and knew how to endure silently. Duan Huanghai's strength was 8th level Heavenly Emperor, but his aura was stronger than Shi Wushang's. His combat strength was above Shi Wushang's. Hence, he could treat Shi Wushang coldly. But he was absolutely not Long Out Yin's match. In front of the latter, he could only be respectful. Don't fucking worm your way up to me. If I had a brother like you, wouldn't I be ashamed to death? But Long Out Yin did not fall for this at all and directly reproached. You were still King coming here for the heaven-earth spirit pool arrogantly just now. Why did you suddenly become a coward now? Duan Huanghai's face flushed red, but did not dare to refute anything. Nie Tian gave Long Out Yin a glance, indicating for the latter to stop. Really forcing Duan Huanghai into a corner was not too good either. Nie Tian. At this time, Lin Yi stood up. His entire person already recovered and was in high spirits, his condition very good. When Nie Tian saw that Lin Yi already recovered, he ignored Duan Huanghai and the rest and asked directly, "Can we start now?" He already could not wait, just waiting for Lin Yi. "Can." Lin Yi nodded slightly. Nie Tian similarly smiled. Then his gaze swept across everyone and said, "Everyone listen up. I know that you all want to enter the Gate of the Void. But the Gate of the Void has very strong space-time pressure inside. If we want to enter, we must weaken the space-time pressure. We need everyone's help to weaken the space-time pressure together." Weakening the space-time pressure, Nie Tian and Lin Yi were the main force. But the others could not be idle either. Everyone present were Heavenly Emperor realm martial artists. Their auras were sufficient to change the power of heaven and earth. This was very helpful in weakening the space-time pressure. Everyone looked at Nie Tian with puzzled faces, expressing doubt one after another. Clearly, they did not trust Nie Tian. Didn't you all hear what my big brother said? At this time, Long Out Yin stepped forward and roared angrily. His voice was like a clap of thunder. A massive pressure surged towards everyone. Everyone felt heavy pressure. Want to enter the Gate of the Void? We'll have to listen to him. The next instant, Heartless also stepped forward and spoke solemnly. But what his entire body released was ice-cold, killing intent, making people feel suffocated. Duan Huanghai and Shi Wushang were both smart people and immediately understood. They said at the same time, "Tell us then, what do you want us to do?" "Very good." Nie Tian smiled faintly, very satisfied. Long Out Yin, Heartless, Duan Huanghai, Shi Wushang, 4 8th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artists all stepped forward. The others naturally did not dare to object anymore, expressing their willingness to listen to the command one after another. Want to enter the Gate of the Void as soon as possible. Everyone must be united. Nie Tian no longer hesitated, activating the holographic divine vestige. Very soon, a holographic projection of several tens of thousands of meters appeared in his mind. He sensed the direction of the power of heaven and earth. Countless light spots appeared on the holographic projection. Immediately, Nie Tian's entire body released countless streaks of sword chi, releasing them like starlight, suspending in the surrounding space. All of the sword chi connected together and actually condensed into a massive grand array. A weak but stable array formation power was released. Chapter 1147. The 9 Palace Spirit Array, very good. As soon as Nie Tian finished setting up the array, Elder Jian's voice rang out with a rare praise. Nie Tian had set up the 9 Palace Spirit Array, a very ancient array that could reverse the power of heaven and earth. However, he had only set up the framework of the array. If he wanted the array to operate, he would need the cooperation of the people in front of him. Nie Tian, who are you? Lin Yi looked at the 9 Palace Spirit Array above his head, his eyes narrowing as he spoke in a heavy voice. The stronger Nie Tian was, the more determined Lin Yi was to kill him. Everyone, I have marked the various positions of the array with sword aura. Please enter the array. Nietian smiled faintly and said to the crowd. The crowd was stunned at first, but no one dared to enter the array first. Seeing this scene, Nietian couldn't help but smile bitterly. It seemed that these people still didn't trust him. I'll go first. At this moment, a clear voice rang out. Immediately after, a figure leaped into the air, stepped into the 9 palaces formation, and stood the position marked by Nietian. By Xiaofei. Nietian saw the person's face and smiled slightly. He didn't expect that Bai Xiaofei would be the first to stand up and support him. Bai Xiaofei's primordial spirit was very strange. He felt a powerful aura from the 9 palace spirit array, so he believed in Nietian's methods. We'll go too. Then 2 more voices rang out. The figures of Bai Yunfei and Bai Xiaoya jumped up and appeared not far from Bai Xiaofei. With the appearance of the 3 siblings, the entire 9 palace spirit array produced a powerful aura, and the power of the array increased by a lot. Next, everyone fought to be the first to leap up and appear on top of the great array. Teacher, I'll go too, Shuiyong said, and also stepped into the array. Ao Tan, wait a moment. At this time, Long Outyin also wanted to go over, but he was stopped by Nietian. The latter then looked at Heartless, Duan Huanghai, and Shi Wushang, indicating for them to wait. The 4 of them didn't know what Nietian was going to do, but they still waited patiently. A moment later, thousands of cultivators appeared above the array. As they released their auras, the entire 9 palace array slowly began to revolve. The momentum of the heavens and earth changed as 9 space passages appeared in the void. Although they couldn't be seen, they could clearly be felt. Good move. At this time, Linny understood what Nietian meant. Nietian used the 9 palaces formation to create 9 spatial tunnels, and these 9 tunnels all led to the gate to the void. When the space-time pressure in the gate to the void was released, it would escape through the 9 spatial tunnels. In this way, there was no doubt that it would greatly increase the speed at which the space-time pressure was weakened, and it was guaranteed that it would succeed. There was a certain risk in using Nietian and Lin Yi's Dragon Shi to weaken the space-time pressure of the gate to the void. But with the addition of the 9 palace array, it was guaranteed to succeed 100%. Nietian set up a 9 palace array and used the power of thousands of Heavenly Emperor realm martial artists. This kind of means was really terrifying. The 4 of you, your positions are at the very top. At this time, Nietian pointed to the position at the very top of the array. It was actually only a few hundred meters away from the door to the void. The space-time pressure in that place was already very great. Ordinary Heavenly Emperor realm martial artists could not bear it. But to 8th level Heavenly Emperor realm martial artists, there was no pressure. The 4 of them nodded at the same time, then leaped up, their figures appearing in the 4 key positions of the 9 palace array. Looks like those 2 positions are left for us. Lin Yi saw that the 2 positions at the outermost edge of the array were where the entire array was slanted. The power of heaven and earth also gathered there. It was precisely the core position of the 9 palace array. Nietian nodded slightly and directly flew over in the air. Lin Yi followed closely behind. Boom! As the 2 people appeared in the array, the entire array suddenly let out a roar. An incomparably huge array power spread out, pervading the void. Like an invisible giant hand, it stretched towards the door to the void not far away. The 4 of you, you must withstand the pressure of the door to the void. Nietian raised his head and glanced at Long Outyin 4 people at the top. His eyes could not help but be a little nervous. Big brother, don't worry. Long Outyin, will definitely have no problem. Long Outyin laughed wildly, very confident. The other 3 people also nodded one after another. Even if they were not Nietian's friends, in order to enter the door to the void, they were willing to listen to the command. Let's begin. Exhaling a turbid breath, Nietian glanced at Lin Yi and no longer hesitated. His entire body slowly surged with mighty dragon chi. At the same time, Lin Yi also released the red 5 Yang Dragon Chi. The 2 dragon chis slowly permeated and gradually merged together, merging into a reddish-gold dragon chi sea behind the 2 of them. Immediately, The reddish-gold dragon, Chi, surged out and automatically poured into the 9 space passages. Then, like a long snake, it rushed towards the door to the void. The moment the dragon Chi snake approached the door to the void, it immediately stirred up a terrifying power of time and space. The invisible power was extremely violent, and it actually tore the dragon Chi snake apart. However, the escaping dragon Chi was like a maggot in the bone, penetrating into the door to the void. Boom! The next moment, the door to the void was stimulated and suddenly shook. A terrifying pressure of time and space was released, directly rushing towards the array of 9 palaces fiercely. Long Out Hien and the other 3 people were the closest to the door to the void, so they bore the brunt of the pressure. The 4 of them felt a terrible pressure coming from all directions. They could not avoid it at all, so they could only bear it. Fortunately, the 4 of them were strong enough to withstand the impact of the pressure of time and space. Nie Tian raised his head and glanced at the 4 of them. Large beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. Beside him, Linny also had a look of horror on his face. The pressure of time and space of this door to the void was very strong, which was beyond Nie Tian's expectations. Fortunately, he had set up the array of 9 palaces. Otherwise, with just his and Lin Yi's strength, they would not be able to withstand the pressure of the door to the void. At this moment, with Long Out Yin and the others bearing the pressure of time and space for Nie Tian and Lin Yi, the 2 of them were in good condition. Next, the 2 of them released even more violent dragon Chi. After merging, it turned into a terrifying dragon Chi snake, attacking the door to the void. This time, the resistance of the door to the void was more intense. The terrible pressure of time and space spread out, directly pressing on Long Out Yin and the others. Immediately, a scream was heard. It was Shi Wushang. He seemed to be unable to withstand the pressure of time and space, and his body was oppressed until it was deformed. Shi Wushang was originally the weakest among the 4 of them. Previously, he had been seriously injured by Nie Tian and Lin Yi, so he had not fully recovered. Therefore, it was very difficult for him to withstand the terrible pressure of time and space. Oh no! Nie Tian saw that Shi Wushang could not withstand the pressure, and his eyes darkened. He knew that things were not good. Shi Wushang's position was very important. If he was not there, the pressure of time and space would directly descend on Nie Tian and Lin Yi. The 2 of them were too weak to withstand it. Chapter 1148. Profound Doppelganger. When Nie Tian saw that there was a doppelganger next to Long Out Yin, his eyes narrowed. Then, his face lit up with joy. He had almost forgotten that Long Out Yin was a bladesman who had reached the advanced level of Profound Saber. The strength of a Profound Doppelganger was comparable to a martial artist's body. However, it consumed a great deal of the martial artist's origin power. Even with Nie Tian's elementary level of Profound Sword, he could not condense a Profound Doppelganger. Get lost! Long Out Yin roared. He controlled the doppelganger to take Shi Wushang's place. However, this way, he would have to bear even greater space-time pressure. Out Yin, hold on. Nie Tian nodded slightly and continued to release the dragon Qi in his body. Next, the gate of the void continued to release space-time pressure, but it was getting weaker and weaker. Phew! Nie Tian could feel that the space-time pressure from the gate of the void had weakened. He could not help but let out a long sigh of relief. His expression was much more relaxed. As long as they could withstand the first few waves of pressure, the rest would be very easy. As Nie Tian and Lin Yi released more and more dragon Qi, the gate of the void became weaker and weaker. After about an hour, the pressure from the gate of the void had weakened to a very obvious level. It's about time. The corner of Nie Tian's mouth curled up. He muttered, "It's time to open the gate of the void." Then he glanced at Lin Yi. The latter understood. The two of them released an even greater amount of dragon Qi at the same time. After merging, it actually condensed into a giant reddish-gold dragon, which directly rushed toward the gate of the void. What were they doing? When the crowd saw this, they could not help but tremble. They did not know what Nie Tian and Lin Yi were going to do. Were they going to destroy the gate of the void? Everyone get ready. We're going to enter another world. Before anyone could react, Nietion's voice rang out with great excitement. Boom! Immediately after, the golden dragon bombarded the gate of the void. After a muffled sound, the gate of the void trembled violently, and a crack appeared. Under the gaze of countless pairs of eyes, the crack expanded infinitely. Suddenly, an enormous force surged out, as if a boundless giant beast had opened its invisible mouth and pounced towards the Nine Palaces' great array. In an instant, everyone felt a blinding light appear, forcing them to close their eyes. In the next instant, the space-time crack that emerged from the gate to the void enveloped the Nine Palaces' great array. The entire Nine Palaces' great array disappeared into thin air and entered the gate to the void. Within the Nine Palaces' great array, everyone felt as if time and space were shifting. Suddenly, they felt as if their souls were being torn apart, and their consciousness was temporarily knocked out. In the blink of an eye, everyone woke up. When they opened their eyes once more, they discovered that they were still within the Nine Palaces' grand formation. However, their surroundings had changed completely. Everyone looked at the completely unfamiliar world in front of them and were petrified, unable to react for a long time. This was a very strange space. There were huge glaciers everywhere on the ground, and bone-chilling coldness gushed out from the bottom. High up in the sky, there was a fiery red sky. The sky was actually burning, and it was filled with an endless sea of fire. Those were real flames, real and solid, releasing a blazing hot aura. This kind of environment was too strange. There were glaciers on the ground, and a sea of fire in the sky. It was simply the legendary ice and fire heaven. What was even more strange was that there was a very clear separation between the worlds of ice and fire. Someone just happened to appear on the line between ice and fire. His upper body was incomparably hot, and his lower body was bone-chilling. This feeling was too strange. It was as if his lower body was standing in a bucket of ice, and his upper body was being roasted by a raging fire. Fortunately, most of them had the strength of the heavenly emperor realm. Their martial bodies were strong enough to withstand this extreme test of ice and fire. Nietion was stunned for a long time before he finally reacted. He was in the position where ice and fire separated. His upper body was burning hot, and his lower body was freezing cold. However, his martial body was strong enough to withstand this feeling of extreme ice and fire. Looks like we have arrived at an alternate dimension, Nietion murmured as he felt the surrounding heaven and earth spiritual energy was obviously much denser. He could not help but raise the corner of his mouth. However, what surprised him was that there seemed to be only two types of heaven and earth spiritual energy here. One was ice attribute, and the other was fire attribute. There were no other attributes of heaven and earth spiritual energy. Moreover, the space-time aura here was very strong. It was obviously more stable than the heaven realm's celestial realm. This was definitely a higher level world than the upper plane. However, this world was really a little too strange. As far as the eye could see, there was only ice and fire. There was not the slightest breath of life. At this moment, most of them came to their senses and looked at their surroundings in astonishment. Nietion directly removed the Nine Palaces' great array. Immediately, the feeling of extreme ice and fire became more obvious. The meridians in his lower body seemed to be frozen, and the meridians in his upper body were almost boiling. "What is this place?" someone asked in surprise. He did not know where he was at all. His eyes flashed with great fear. Someone asked, but no one answered because no one knew where they were. "Big brother." At this time, Long Outyin walked over and called out to Nietion. "Outyin, are you okay?" Nietion saw that Long Outyin's face was a little pale and asked with concern. Long Outyin used the profound doppelganger and consumed a large amount of origin energy. In addition to the impact of the space-time pressure, his condition was not very good. "I'm fine." Long Outyin looked like he did not care. He smiled and said, "What the hell is this place? It's cold below and hot above. It's so comfortable." Nietion was speechless. Long Outyin still had the mood to joke at this time. This should be a sealed space. However, there's only ice and fire. It's very strange, Nietian murmured. His eyes looked into the distance. Suddenly, he discovered that in the distant sky, there was actually a floating mountain. He did not see wrongly. It was indeed a mountain that was floating in the air. Moreover, there were actually many trees on the mountain. It was completely different from the surrounding world of ice and fire. It seemed out of place. Look, what's that? At this time, the others also discovered the mountain in the air. They all cried out in surprise, and their voices became very excited. A mountain floating in the air. This was too strange. Let's go there first. Nietian was also very excited. He wanted to go to the floating mountain to take a look. Perhaps the spiritual pool of heaven and earth was in that mountain. Long Out Yin. However, at this time, a cold voice rang out. Then, a wave of killing intent gushed out and enveloped Nietian and Long Out Yin. Nietian was slightly stunned. He slowly turned around, and a pair of cold eyes already stared at him and Long Out Yin. It was Broken Desolation Sea, and beside Broken Desolation Sea, Shi Wushang also glared like a tiger watching its prey. His whole body was full of killing intent. So anxious to make a move already? Nietian smiled bitterly. He knew that Broken Desolation Sea and the others would not give up just like that. He did not expect that they would turn hostile so quickly. They had just arrived at the world of ice and fire, and they could not wait to kill. Chapter 1149. Alternate Dimension, World of Ice and Fire. Desolate Splitting Sea and Shi Wushang stood side by side, two pairs of cold eyes staring fixedly at Long Out Yin. In their eyes, Long Out Yin was the greatest threat. As long as they killed this person, Nietian was nothing to fear. Although Nietian's strength was strange and his means were heaven-defying, his strength was too weak after all. In Desolate Splitting Sea and Shi Wushang's eyes, he was still not considered a threat. When the crowd saw that the two great sect masters wanted to fight with Long Out Yin, they all reacted with excited faces, their gazes carrying intense heat. 3/8 level Heavenly Emperor martial artists fighting, regardless of who won or lost. It was a good thing for the others, because this way, there would be one less powerful competitor. Two little grasshoppers. Are you getting impatient already? Long Out Yin faced Desolate Splitting Sea and Shi Wushang, two people. His pale face revealed a hint of gloominess, his entire body releasing a burst of rage. If he had long known that Shi Wushang was so shameless, he should not have saved him back then and let him be crushed to death by the space-time pressure inside the Nine Palaces Grand Array. Teacher, Shui Yang's figure appeared and stood beside Long Out Yin, a nervous look on his face. Big brother, you and Little Yong leave first. Leave his place to me. Long Out Yin said in a low voice. A pair of cold eyes locked tightly onto the two great sect masters, guarding against the two people at all times. At this time, Nietian looked at Heartless and Lin Yi not far away. If Heartless also made a move at this time, then it would be very dangerous. With Long Out Yin's strength, even if his essence energy was insufficient, dealing with Desolate Splitting Sea and Shi Wushang was also no problem. But if Heartless made a move, then it would be terrible. Shui Yong, you leave first. No time to think too much, Nietian said solemnly, letting Shui Yong leave first. Shui Yong hesitated for a bit, but still decided to leave first. He could not help much by staying here. Ancestor, no need to care about them. Finding the heaven and earth spirit pool is more important. On the other side, Lin Yi's voice sounded out. Following that, his figure leaped, directly flying towards the floating mountain in the air. Heartless hesitated for a moment. This was a good opportunity for him to make a move to kill Long Out Yin. But when he looked at the floating mountain, his eyes flickered, and he still decided to search for the heaven and earth spirit pool first. As long as he could find a spirit pool one step ahead and use the spirit pool to increase his strength and reach the 9th level Heavenly Emperor as soon, he could reach the 9th level Heavenly Spirit Pool as. With this thought in mind, Zhu Qing no longer hesitated. He soared into the sky and flew towards Lin Yi. When everyone saw that Lin Yi and the others had already gone over, they naturally didn't want to be left behind. They all flew towards the floating mountain. Long Out Yin and the others' battles were exciting, but they were definitely not as tempting as the spiritual pool of heaven and earth. In the blink of an eye, most of the several thousand people had left. Only the people from the Heaven-Killing sect and the Broken Sea sect, as well as Nie Tian and Long Out Yin, were left. Attack! The two great sect masters' faces fell. With a low roar at the same time, they attacked at the same time, directly blasting over toward Long Out Yin. Sure, Wushang's silver wolf hand attacked again. Silver essence energy pounced out ferociously, condensing a silver sharp claw in space, but did not appear to have much power, pouncing over toward Long Out Yin ferociously. Splitting Sea's palms smacked down. What appeared in the air was actually a handprint condensed for a water screen. The power was still insufficient, only several hundred meters in size. It was completely not the power that 8th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artists should have. When the others saw this scene, they were stunned, not knowing what was going on. It seemed like splitting Desolate Sea and Sure Wushang, two people's strengths became weak. This degree of attacking was virtually only equivalent to Daver Realm martial artists. The space-time here is indeed bizarre. Nie Tian's gaze turned intense slightly. He already discerned that it was not that the two great sect masters' strengths became weak, but that the pressure of the surrounding space was too great. Coupled with the suppression of ice and fire spiritual power, it caused essence energy to be suppressed, unable to erupt with powerful power. Too trash, such strength, and also want to kill your father? Long Out Yin laughed coldly. With a furious roar, the 8 desolate ghost bone attacked. Surging 8 desolate ghost chi was released. A sinister ghost claw appeared, but the power was similarly insufficient. Rumble. In the void, 3 surges of energy collided with a loud bang. A muffled sound. Berserk energy exploded. Below the space actually condensed chunks of enormous ice, while above, terrifying flames rose up. Everyone looked at the scene in the sky with strange looks, dumbfounded with their eyes and mouths agape, not understanding what was going on. Nie Tian's brows also furrowed, faintly understanding something. This place was a world of ice and fire, two extremes. When the two kinds of heaven and earth spiritual power suffered the impact of other essence energy, they immediately became berserk. The world of ice below froze into ice cubes, while the world of fire above became even more violent and blazing. Art. At this time, a scream sounded. A martial artist was pierced by an icicle below, and the lower half of his body was directly frozen. Immediately after, more screams sounded. Many martial artists in the world of ice were instantly frozen, turning into human-shaped ice sculptures. A chain reaction? Nie Tian was slightly stunned. His figure suddenly leaped up, entering the world of fire above. As Long Out Yin and the two sect leaders exchanged blows, the impact of the essence energy actually created a chain reaction in the world of ice and fire. The space within 10,000 meters of the surrounding space seemed to be moved by an invisible force. The world below was instantly frozen, while the world above was boiling with flames, extremely violent. Where the power of ice and fire intersected, there was only a spatial line, but it was unusually obvious, separating the two forces, making it impossible for them to penetrate each other. Nie Tian activated the ultimate fire Scarlet Heaven battle armor to prevent the violent flames from invading, but his brows were tightly knitted. Just what kind of power was it to actually be able to create such a strange world? The worlds of ice and fire coexisted together because of a spatial line separating them. The other martial artists leaped out of the world of ice one after another. But many people's strengths were lacking. Entering the world of fire, they were directly incinerated by the violent flames. The chain reaction caused by the impact of essence energy was too terrifying. The destructive power of the two worlds of ice and fire erupted together. Ordinary Heavenly Emperor realm martial artists could not withstand it at all. Nie Tian reckoned that this kind of impact of the power of ice and fire, one needed to at least have 4th level Heavenly Emperor strength to be able to withstand it. Although he only had second-level Heavenly Emperor strength, his martial body was powerful. Most importantly, he had the power of stars, virtually able to suppress any power. Even if the power of ice and fire was very strong, it was also hard to seep into his martial body. But the rest of the Heaven Murder sect and Broken Sea sects people were miserable. In a blink of an eye, several dozen people practically died. Only a few 4th level and 5th level Heavenly Emperor martial artists survived. What's going on here? Desolate splitting sea and Shi Wushang's bodies trembled, dispersing the impact of ice and fire around them. But their expressions were incredibly shocked. They were 8th level Heavenly Emperor strength and naturally did not fear the power of ice and fire. But they did not know what was going on in front of them. When Long Outyin saw that the two sects people were pretty much dead all at once, he could not help laughing wildly and said, "This punch didn't kill you two small fries, but killed a bunch of small shrimps. It's also pretty good." Chapter 1150. The chain reaction of the world of ice and fire was too terrifying. Just the impact of the origin energy was enough to cause a terrifying explosion of power, instantly killing dozens of people. Duan Huanghai and Shi Wushang became cautious and didn't dare to act recklessly anymore. The atmosphere became a little strange. The chain force only disappeared after a long time. The ice in the world of ice slowly cracked and melted, finally recovering. The violent flames in the world of fire also became much more stable. When everyone saw this scene, they calmed down a little. Niet Tian frowned, and the holographic divine glyphs started to revolve. The world of ice and fire was too strange. He had to find out what exactly was going on. In the void, a formless divine sense slowly spread out, covering a radius of tens of thousands of meters, carefully sensing the power in the space. But, disappointingly, nothing appeared in the holographic projection. There was only the strange heaven and earth spiritual energy in the void. It can't be like this. It can't be so simple. Niet Tian frowned. He didn't believe that the world of ice and fire was formed naturally. There must be some kind of power supporting it. Calm down, Niet Tian roared in his heart. He forced himself to calm down and close his eyes, focusing all his attention on the holographic divine glyphs. In his divine sense, the power of the divine glyphs slowly spread out and merged with the space. Both Niet Tian's body and mind relaxed as he gradually entered a mysterious world. What is he doing? When the others saw Niet Tian closing his eyes with a gentle expression, they were all stunned. Long Outyin also frowned. He didn't know what Niet Tian was doing. And at this moment, two pairs of cold eyes locked onto Niet Tian. Their eyes were filled with cold, killing intent. It was young Master Godslayer and young Master Duan Li. Niet Tian spread out his divine sense and entered a mysterious state. When the holographic divine glyphs completely merged with the space, he finally discovered something, the aura of a formation. Niet Tian's heart trembled. He felt a huge formation force in the space, and the ice and fire spiritual energy gradually revealed its true appearance. It was some strange runes. Niet Tian carefully identified the runes in the formation and immediately confirmed that this was a type of spirit power. Another type of spirit power. No wonder this world is so strange. It turns out to be an ice and fire grand array condensed from spirit E-force. Niet Tian was extremely shocked in his heart, and his whole person became excited. He finally understood why this world of ice and fire could exist. It turned out that this entire alternate dimension was a grand array formed by divine power. The reason why there were only two attributes of heaven and earth spiritual energy in this space was because the large formation was operating and the other attributes of heaven and earth spiritual energy were forcibly converted to ice and fire spiritual energy. Niet Tian did not know the name of the array, so he could only temporarily call it the ice and fire array. What shocked him the most was that the power in this formation was actually the spirit bright force. He already knew that the spirit intent force was a type of energy that surpassed the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Not only that, he had already seen different types of spirit intent force. The sword imprint, holographic divine imprint, thunderbolt divine imprint, all of them were spirit intent force. However, this was the first time he had seen a spiritual formation formed by the spirit intent force. The spirit intent force was indeed powerful. A grand array that created a world of ice and fire was truly terrifying. Inside the ice and fire grand array, the flowing runes are the divine imprints of ice and fire. Nietian sensed the power of the runes in the space, and his eyes burned with unconcealable desire. If he could obtain the power of the divine imprints of ice and fire, Nietian believed that his strength would increase exponentially, and he might even be able to master the ice and fire grand array. Thinking of this, Nietian was beyond excited, and his body couldn't help but tremble. "Die for me!" Just at this moment, two cold voices rang out and merged together. Two silhouettes made their moves at the same time, and two waves of energy howled out and pressed towards Nietian. The ones who made their moves were none other than young Master Shinslayer and young Master Duanli. The two of them had been observing Nietian for a long time, and realized that the latter was completely immersed in other things and had no defense. This was the best time for them to make their move. Their timing was very good, and their speed was very fast. In the space, a golden handprint and a tumbling curtain of water suddenly pressed towards Nietian. "Big brother, watch out!" Long Outyin couldn't help but scream at this scene. His attention was always on Desolate Sea and Shi Wushang, and he didn't expect young Noble Godslayer and young Noble Duanli to suddenly make their move. He wanted to make a move, but it was too late. At this moment, Nietian was in a state of excitement, and all his attention was on the ice and fire grand array. Almost at the same time the two made their move, the projection already showed the scene of the attack. Nietian reacted immediately, and the meteor wings appeared on his back. With a flap of the wings, his silhouette flickered. Boom! Boom! The golden handprint's huge curtain of water almost brushed past Nietian, and the surging momentum created a huge pressure, causing his body to tremble and spurt out a mouthful of blood. Now, young Noble Duanli and young Noble Godslayer saw that Nietian was injured, and their faces were not filled with joy, but shock and confusion. They didn't expect Nietian's reaction to be so fast, and it was far beyond their expectations. Just now, Nietian clearly didn't notice the two of them, and they were only a few hundred meters away from Nietian. They attacked at such a close distance, and it was a surprise, but he actually dodged it. It was really strange. Nietian's figure froze in midair, and his whole body had already activated the extreme Fire Scarlet Heaven battle armor. The surrounding raging flames were all blocked by the battle armor. This time, the chain reaction was obviously not as terrifying as before. It seemed that the stronger the impact, the stronger the chain reaction. Young Noble Godslayer and young Noble Duanli's strength was not on the same level as the two sect masters, so the chain reaction was not strong. Nietian wiped the blood off the corner of his mouth, looked at the two of them, and heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he had the holographic divine pattern and the meteor wings, or else he wouldn't have been able to dodge that attack. These two people clearly wanted to kill him in one blow, so they spared no effort. If Nietian did not evade the attack just now, even if he didn't die, he would be severely injured right now. But Nietian still had a look of joy because he discovered an extremely important thing, the Ice-Fire Divine Pattern. Bastards, you're courting death. At this time, Long Outyin reacted to it and gave a deep roar, his entire person enraged. The aura of his entire body rose up, and his figure moved. A dragonhead treasure saber actually appeared in his hand. It was precisely his primordial spirit, Dragon Slaying Slash. Proud heaven! When Nietian saw this scene, his expression fell with fright. He wanted to stop Long Outyin, but it was already too late. Long Outyin was thoroughly enraged this time, to actually use primordial spirit. He was a saber wielder at the high-rank saber Profound Realm. The moment the Dragon-Slaying Slash was unleashed, it was sufficient to contend with 9th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artists. Young Noble Godslayer and young noble Duan, Li felt an extremely surging aura pressing over. The terrifying aura of death immediately made them have a feeling of suffocation, frightened until their faces turned pale as paper. Chapter 11:51. Long Outyan's face was grim, his eyes austere. His entire body's aura was like mountains and seas. Even under the suppression of ice and fire, it still gave people a majestic and mighty sense of oppression. Dragon-slaying art, ghostly slaughter strike. Without any hesitation, Long Outyan's dragon slaying slash down. A majestic saber intent bloomed in the space. A terrifying power wreaked havoc in the space, assaulting the ice-fire divine vestige. Rumble. The saber intent instantly exploded in the space. A horrifying saber image appeared and actually directly made the surrounding flame power become berserk. Violent flames surged on the entire saber image, crushing over toward young Master Godslayer and young Master Duanli. The power of this saber was Long Outyan's full power. Even ordinary 9th level Heavenly Emperor martial artists would find it hard to receive it head-on. Without a doubt, if young Master Godslayer and young Master Duanli were hit, they would die without a doubt. No! At virtually the same time, Desolate Sea splitting and Sure Wushang cried out at the same time. The two people exchanged a glance and attacked at the same time, releasing the aura around them and actually fused together. Immediately, a terrifying pressure spread out. Heaven-murdering, sea-splitting palm. The two people attacked at the same time, shouting loudly. Following that, essence energy condensed. A terrifying palm appeared. It was actually 1,000 meters in size, causing the entire void to tremble. That palm phantom came out with a loud bang, like a sky curtain pressing over, attempting to block Long Outyan's fatal blow. Crap! Seeing this scene, Nietion's eyes trembled, his face suddenly falling. Desolate Sea splitting and Sure Wushang clearly used a combination martial technique. It was very terrifying. The two of them were former senior and junior brothers. Knowing a combination martial technique was not strange. The two of them were both 8th level Heavenly Emperor martial artists. A combination martial technique was sufficient to pose a threat to 9th level Heavenly Emperor martial artists. Nietion suddenly understood at this time why Sure Wushang called Desolate Sea splitting over. It turned out that the two of them could release a combination martial technique together. But this was not the most important thing. The most terrifying thing was that such a powerful force impact would trigger a powerful chain reaction from the ice-fire divine vestige. That was virtually fatal. Rumble. In the next moment, the horrifying shadow of the blade fell and directly bombarded the shadow of the palm. In an instant, a powerful force exploded, turning into an endless impact that wreaked havoc in the space. In Nietion's projection, he could clearly see that every wave of energy that struck the divine rune of ice and fire caused the rune to go berserk. Waves of terrifying rune aura were released, and the entire world of ice and fire instantly became violent and seething. Chi. In the space, with the impact of the terrifying power, there was an extremely ear-piercing sound, as if the world was about to be torn apart. Crack, crack, crack. When the impact force surged in the ice world, the space within tens of thousands of meters was instantly frozen, and a bone-chilling aura spread out. It was enormous and terrifying. Boom, boom, boom. In the sky above, the terrifying power of fire became more violent, and the scorching aura caused the space to burn. Nietion's nerves were taut, but he suddenly realized something, and his expression changed. On the holographic projection in his mind, countless ice elemental divine runes connected together, instantly condensing into the shape of a dragon, and the fire elemental divine runes also intertwined, condensing into a giant bird. Nietion's eyes trembled violently, and he felt that two terrifying forces had suddenly appeared in the ice and fire formation. Almost without any hesitation, Nietion activated his Deva domain, dragon scale shield, and the heaven-shrouding totem appeared. He also formed a seal with his hands, which was the 3 seals of the god of war. He felt that an extremely terrifying power was about to erupt. Rumble. At this moment, the world of ice below suddenly shook violently, as if a huge monster was moving in the ice. Tian looked down at his feet, and he saw that within the ice, an ice dragon that was nearly 10,000 meters long had appeared, directly breaking through the endless layers of ice and directly charging towards the world of fire. The others also saw the huge ice dragon, and their eyes became dull. Everyone came to their senses and tried to escape into the sky. Rumble. And at the same time, a rumble also sounded out above the sky. Everyone looked up and saw an incomparably massive flaming bird swooping down from the sky. The surging aura was violent and direct, and the surrounding space directly turned into a boundless sea of fire. The blazing to the extreme flame aura wreaked havoc. Everyone felt the terrifying power spreading over, but they could not resist it and could only forcefully endure it. At this time, a heart-wrenching scream sounded out. A 5th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artist actually directly burned up, instantly turning into ashes. Immediately, even more screams sounded out. The bodies of the few remaining 5th-level Heavenly Emperor martial artists were all burning up. Shrill screams resounded in the space of fire. Leave, Duanhuanghai, and Shi Wushang saw that the situation was not good. Their figures moved, flying over and rescuing young Master Duanli and young Master Godslayer respectively, then flew towards a huge mountain floating in the sky. Outyin. Tian saw that Long Outyin's complexion was pale. Clearly, his essence energy was already depleted. He could not help crying out, flapping his wings and flying over. Long Outyin's essence energy was insufficient to begin with. Coupled with his violent rage earlier, using his primordial spirit and going all out in that all-out attack, he did not even have any essence energy left at this time. Tian grabbed Long Outyin, the 2 wings on his back flapping frenziedly, wanting to leave. Rumble. Right at this time, that ice dragon under the ice layer actually broke out of the ice. Immediately, the entire stretch of space started trembling violently. Tian distinctly sensed that ice and fire dividing line actually broke apart instantly, being crushed by the ice dragon. At the same time, the fire phoenix in the sky also swooped down. A scorching aura descended on the ice surface. The ice surface started cracking and melting on a large scale. A destructive aura spread out in the space, as if doomsday had arrived. Ice dragon, fire phoenix, these are the guardians of the fire and ice array. Once the array is under attack, the ice dragon and fire phoenix will appear. Tian immediately understood, his eyes trembling violently. The power of the ice dragon and fire phoenix was too terrifying. They actually broke through the ice and fire dividing line. Bang! At this time, the terrifying power of ice and fire collided with each other, creating a terrifying shockwave visible to the naked eye, spreading out in all directions. Big brother, don't worry about me. Long Outyin felt the terrifying power and shouted, "Let's go." There was no way Tian would abandon Long Outyin at this time. His whole body burst out. The heaven-shrouding totem instantly spread out, enveloping Long Outyin within. At the same time, he slapped out with his palm, using the 3 seals of the divine god of war simultaneously. 3 enormous forces bombarded towards Long Outyin. Tian did not care about anything else. His wings flapped, and he flew up into the sky with Long Outyin. Bang, bang, bang. Behind him, endless muffled sounds rang out. The heaven-shrouding totem instantly shattered, and the 3 seals of the divine god of war were also directly shattered. Tian's body trembled slightly, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. On his palm, a white ball of starlight appeared and directly bloomed like a shield, enveloping him and Long Outyin. Chapter 1152. Tian brought Long Outyin and retreated rapidly. A layer of white halo appeared around the 2 of them, like a shield, enveloping them. This was the shield that Tian created using Morningstar Daybreak. He condensed almost all the power of stars, hoping to block the impact of the terrifying air wave. Fortunately, Tian had secretly started to condense the power of stars beforehand. Otherwise, he could only wait to be engulfed by the air wave now. Boom! In the void, the collision of ice and fire formed a terrifying air wave that surged over. The momentum of the raging waves seemed to want to tear heaven and earth apart and engulf it. Bang! Chi, chi, chi. A violent, muffled sound. The terrifying air wave bombarded the astral shield and actually started to penetrate, tear, and engulf. But this bought some time for Tian. His figure was extremely fast. In just a blink of an eye, he had already flown tens of thousands of meters away. The surging air wave finally weakened a little. The oppressive force bombarded Tian, but it was not fatal. It was within the range that his martial physique could withstand. The wings behind Tian flapped again, and he retreated several thousand meters, his figure standing in the void filled with flames. At this time, he was already out of the danger zone and completely safe. F***CK. What kind of power is this so terrifying? Long Outyen's face was pale. Looking at the surging air wave under his feet, he revealed a very rare look of panic. The power of the ice and fire air wave was very terrifying, almost not inferior to the spatial storm. Fortunately, Tian's speed was fast enough and avoided the direct impact. Otherwise, he and Long Outyen would definitely not have a corpse left. This degree of air wave impact, even peak Heavenly Emperor martial artists would be directly torn to shreds. Puff! At this time, Tian looked at the air wave in the distance and was just about to open his mouth to speak, but his body trembled and he vomited a mouthful of blood. His face was as pale as paper. Just now, in order to avoid the impact of the air wave, he activated all his defenses, using the 3 seals of the God of War, Heaven Shrouding Totem, and Morningstar Daybreak, and only then did he barely survive. The essence energy consumption was huge, and the blood chi in his body became unstable. Big brother, are you all right? Long Outyen saw that Tian vomited blood and could not help but be nervous. I'm fine. Tian wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. 2 spirit pills appeared in his hand. They were the 7 Revolutions Dragon Heart pills. He swallowed one himself and gave the other to Long Outyen. The 2 of them swallowed the 7 Revolutions Dragon Heart pill, and their complexions looked much better. However, the 7 Revolutions Dragon Heart pill was only used to recover elemental energy. If he wanted to maximize the medicinal power of the 7 Revolutions Dragon Heart pill, it was best to take it when he was in his best condition. If someone saw Tian consume a Tier 9 spirit pill to recover his essence energy, they would definitely cry out that it was a waste. Although spirit pills like the Vitality Consolidating pill could also restore one's elemental energy, the medicinal effects were too weak and the recovery time was too slow. After taking the 7 Revolutions Dragon Heart pill, Tian and Long Outyen spirit energy would completely recover within half an hour. A grand formation formed from spirit intent energy is truly terrifying. Tian couldn't help sighing as he watched the ice and fire chi waves gradually weaken. Bright spirit force? What's that? Long Outyen was stunned. He didn't know what Tian was talking about. Tian smiled faintly and didn't explain too much. The ice and fire world recovered its calm after a long time. That ice dragon and fire phoenix also gradually calmed down. One returned to the ice layer while the other returned to the fiery sky. They quickly disappeared. At this time, Tian felt that the dividing line between the ice and fire world appeared again. The 2 powers returned to their original worlds and weren't compatible. What exactly is this dividing line? It actually completely separates the 2 extreme powers. Too strange. Tian frowned. His divine sense sensed the dividing line between ice and fire. However, other than the void, he didn't find any abnormalities. He didn't give up. He carefully sensed it, but still didn't find anything. It seemed that this dividing line was extremely strange. It directly separated the two powers. It should be some kind of space-time divine rune. Just as Tian was puzzled, the Sword Elder's voice sounded. He was also puzzled and didn't seem too sure. Space-time divine rune, Tian muttered. His eyes couldn't help but sink. The Sword Elder should be right. Since there was space-time attribute heaven and earth spiritual power, of course there was space-time divine rune. However, this strange space was indeed very strange. It turned out to be an ice and fire array. Then, who arranged this array and what was their purpose? These questions were too big. Tian couldn't think of an answer at all. Space-time divine rune, a legendary thing, it actually exists. The Sword Elder looked at the surrounding ice and fire world. His eyes trembled as he said in shock. The dividing line between ice and fire was indeed a kind of space-time divine rune. It was rumored that the space-time divine rune was often used to create space-time restrictions in ancient times. It was a method to imprison God Realm warriors. This ice and fire array was indeed terrifying. The power of the ice dragon and fire phoenix could actually break through the space-time divine rune. This was something that even God Realm warriors couldn't do. Fortunately, Tian dodged in time. Otherwise, he would have died. Big brother, those two little grasshoppers are still alive. At this time, Long Outyin suddenly exclaimed. He looked at the distant sky. Two figures appeared. It was Duan Huang Hai and Shi Wushang. The two of them actually didn't die. The two of them are really lucky. Tian looked at the two of them and found that they each had a person in their hands. It was young Master Godslayer and young Master Duan Li. Duan Huang Hai and Shi Wushang also escaped in time. They avoided the direct impact of the airwaves. However, young Master Godslayer and young Master Duan Li were seriously injured and were on the verge of death. The two of them also noticed Tian and Long Outyin. After a cold glance, they didn't say anything. Instead, they flew towards the floating mountain. Tian watched the two of them leave. He wasn't in a hurry. He waited until his essence force was more or less recovered before he flew towards the floating mountain. After a while, the two of them came to the sky about a few hundred meters away from the floating mountain. They looked down at the floating mountain with an expression of disbelief. This mountain was verdant and lush with trees. Looking from afar, it was full of vitality. It was completely different from the surrounding world of ice and fire. It seemed to belong to another world. It's the space-time divine rune that separates this mountain from the world of ice and fire. Tian spread out his divine sense and immediately found that the mountain was at the boundary of ice and fire. Originally, there should be an iceberg below and a volcano above. However, the entire mountain was wrapped by the space-time divine rune, separating it from the world of ice and fire. The ice and fire grand array actually created such a dense mountain. This kind of method is really uncanny. Tian couldn't help but praise after understanding everything. Without a doubt, the person who created the ice and fire grand array must be a divine realm spirit array master. Moreover, he was a space-time spirit array master. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to use space-time divine runes. Tian, did you notice that this floating mountain is at the center of the world of ice and fire? At this time, the Sword Elder's voice sounded again, and he raised a strange question.